Hey guys, tonight we are going to drift back into the sun-baked world of ancient Egypt. Imagine yourself lying on a reed mat, the faint smell of smoke from last night's fire still clinging to the air, while the first rays of Ra creep over the horizon. The Nile murmurs outside like an eternal lullaby, and the mud brick walls around you still hold the cool of the desert night. This is your morning 3,000 years ago. But here's the reality check: you wouldn't survive a single day. Your breakfast is a slab of coarse bread that could double as a weapon. Your mattress smells like a barn floor because it was a barn floor 3 months ago. And that eyeliner you're smudging on your face, it's not from Sephora. It's crushed minerals mixed with animal fat. Practical, yes. Luxurious, only if you find gritty to be a vibe. Before we wander deeper into this day, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy these sleepy journeys into history. And don't forget to drop your location and local time in the comments. We're weaving together a gentle map of listeners across the world. Now, let's drift together into ancient Egypt. Golden, gritty, and unforgettable. The first thing you feel is the cool dampness of the clay floor beneath your feet as you swing them off the straw mat. The air still carries the faint chill of the desert night, though the horizon already glows with the slow fire of dawn. Outside, the Nile hums softly, a deep, endless pulse like the earth's heartbeat, promising life, yet also reminding you of its power. The roosters, if you can call them that, are not so much alarm clocks as feathered demons announcing Ra's return. And there is no snooze button. Egyptians rise with the sun, not because they're all spiritual yogis, but because the sun itself is a god. To miss the moment Ra sails his golden bark into the sky is like skipping your boss's big speech. It's simply not done. You stretch, hearing the faint crackle of your joints. The scent around you is a mix of baked clay, old smoke, and the ever-present tang of dust. There's no lavender diffuser, no freshly brewed coffee wafting from a kitchen. Instead, there's the heavy sweetness of yesterday's bread, still sitting in a basket by the wall, half stale, and the musk of the goats outside. You don't own an alarm clock, but the bleating of livestock right under your window does the job just fine. Your house is modest, built from mud brick, each block sun-dried and stacked with practical purpose. The walls are thick, not out of luxury, but necessity to keep out the infernal heat of midday. The roof is flat, doubling as both extra storage and a makeshift patio where later tonight you and your neighbors might share a drink, a song, or gossip that hasn't yet made it onto papyrus. The windows are small slits, designed less for the view and more for keeping sandstorms out, and they succeed about as well as your modern kitchen window keeps cockroaches out. Not very. As you shuffle toward the doorway, the first rays of sunlight pierce through the opening, bathing your face in gold. This isn't just morning light, it is rebirth. For Egyptians, Ra's journey across the sky isn't metaphorical, it's survival renewal proof. The universe hasn't collapsed overnight. You don't just wake up, you resurrect with the sun as witness. And yet, let's be honest, your first thought isn't cosmic gratitude. It's that your back aches from a straw mattress that smells suspiciously like animal bedding. Because it was. You would give anything for a modern orthopedic mattress. But in this world, luxury means your mat doesn't poke you with sharp reeds every other hour. Comfort is relative. Outside, the village is already stirring. Children run barefoot, their laughter blending with the clatter of pots and the bray of donkeys. Somewhere down the street, a woman beats grain with a rhythmic thud, the sound carrying across mud walls like a steady drumbeat. The morning isn't quiet, it's alive. You don't sip coffee to ease into your day, you're thrown headfirst into it, wrapped in smells of ash animals and freshly dampened earth. And as you step fully into the light of Ra's rising sun, the day begins, not gently, not softly, but with the weight of expectation that you, like every other soul along the Nile, will take your place in the eternal rhythm of labor, devotion, and survival. You glance around your home and realize quickly that it is no palace of stone. Forget the marble villas you've seen in Hollywood. Your reality is sun-baked mud brick. Each block was shaped from Nile silt and straw pressed together by hand, then left to harden under the relentless Egyptian sun. They are crude by modern standards, but efficient, thick enough to keep the heat at bay during the day and stubbornly holding on to coolness from the night. Inside, the air is dim, filtered through narrow window slits, no wider than your palm. They are placed not for the view, but for survival, angled to catch the occasional breeze and deflect sandstorms that scrape across the desert. Dust still gets in anyway, so much so that sweeping is not a chore, but a daily ritual, one your children will perform with endless sighs. Much like kids today groaning over Wi-Fi passwords, your floor is hard clay polished, smooth by years of bare feet. Each step is a reminder, slippers have not been invented yet, and if you want comfort, you'll have to settle for the occasional reed mat. The scent here is a cocktail of damp earth, wood smoke, and human effort. It's not unpleasant, but it's a far cry from modern notions of fresh linen air freshener. The roof is flat and practical. At night, it becomes your extra bedroom, where you and your family sleep under an endless dome of stars. By day, it doubles as a workspace, drying rack for laundry, and a lookout to spy whether your neighbor's goat has once again wandered into your garden. Privacy is an invention of later centuries. Here, life is communal, loud, and visible. Furniture is sparse. A low wooden stool, perhaps a chest, to store valuables jars lining the wall, filled with water, grain, or beer. Every object is both tool and treasure, because resources are scarce. Nothing is wasted. A cracked pot may serve as a scoop. A broken reed mat becomes kindling. A fragment of limestone might be used as a writing surface for children to scratch practice hieroglyphs. Your home smells alive. The bread baking in the corner oven leaves a yeasty warmth lingering in the air. From outside comes the musky tang of goats and donkeys tethered nearby. This house is not silent. It creaks, it sighs, it echoes with footsteps and laughter. At night, when the desert wind moans through the window, slits the walls hum softly, as if the mud itself remembers the river from which it was born. Here's the reality check, wrapped in dark humor. If you're imagining curling up on a plush sofa with cushions, forget it. Your sofa is a pile of straw that crunches when you sit down, and the cushions are your folded cloak. Want Netflix? The best you'll get is your neighbor's baby, wailing 2 rooms over an endless series renewed every season. And yet within these walls lies everything that matters: shelter from the burning sun, protection from prowling jackals, and the heartbeat of family life. For an ancient Egyptian, it's not luxury, it's survival dressed in clay and straw. The first true duty of the morning is not prayer or gossip, it is bread. You may think bread is just breakfast, but here it is survival itself, the foundation of every meal, every class, every household. Without it, the Egyptian day simply does not turn. In your modest home, The grinding begins before the sun fully clears the horizon. 2 stone querns, one flat, one heavy and handheld, are brought out, and the rhythmic rasp of stone against stone fills the air. It is a sound older than dynasties, a low grating hum that every family knows by heart. You bend over the quern, pushing grain back and forth until it breaks into flour. The work is endless and backbreaking, the kind that leaves grooves in women's knees and permanent calluses on their palms. Archaeologists can still see it in the skeletons, worn down vertebrae grooves in shin bones, a lifetime of bread making etched into the body like hieroglyphs of pain. Your grain is emmer wheat or barley, the staples of Egyptian life. The rich will have servants to do this labor while they sip figs and honey in shaded courtyards. You rise earlier, grind harder, and sweat faster just to make sure your family has loaves to chew before the heat drives you back indoors. And let's be honest, calling it bread feels generous. This stuff is coarse heavy, filled with bits of husk and sand. Imagine biting into toast, sprinkled not with sesame, but with quartz. Dental records from mummies prove it. Egyptians wore their teeth down to stumps, not from candy, but from bread that doubled as sandpaper. Once ground, the flour is mixed with water and shaped into rough dough. Sometimes it's flavored with honey dates or coriander if fortune smiles on you. Most days, though, it's just plain dough slapped onto the sides of clay ovens that glow like miniature suns. The smell is earthy and comforting smoke and yeast blending into an aroma so primal it could lull you back to sleep. But sleep is a luxury you don't get. There are mouths to feed fields to, till gods to appease. You watch the loaves blacken at the edges, their crusts cracking their bellies, puffing slightly. Children wait impatiently, tugging at your tunic. You snap at them, not because you don't love them, but because if you burn the bread, there will be no second batch today. The family depends on you, and unlike a modern kitchen disaster, there's no delivery app to save dinner. Burn it, and everyone chews disappointment till dusk. Here's the cruel humor: your life revolves around bread, yet bread itself is slowly killing you. Grain dust fills your lungs, grit in the flour destroys your teeth, and the labor breaks your back, and still you crave it. When the first loaf comes out steaming and dense, you tear it open with your bare hands, releasing a hot puff of air that smells like comfort and necessity at once. You chew, you swallow, and despite the ache in your jaw, you are grateful. Because in Egypt, bread is not just food, it is the line between life and death, wealth and poverty, feast and famine. And so your day begins, not with sweetness, but with the grind, literally. After bread comes cleansing, not in a spa-like way, but in the pragmatic rhythm of survival. Egyptians were almost obsessive about hygiene, not because they had Instagram filters to maintain, but because filth meant disease, and disease meant death. You kneel beside a large clay jar, brimming with yesterday's water, hauled from the Nile or a nearby well. The surface ripples, faintly, catching the golden slivers of morning sun. Water is precious. You cannot waste it. Every splash must count. You scoop a bowlful, pour it over your arms, your face the dust of the night washing down onto the clay floor. The sensation is bracing, cool, and slightly gritty, as if even the Nile itself carries secrets of silt within it. For your teeth, there are no shiny plastic brushes. Instead, you pick up a frayed twig, often from the Salvadora persica tree, known for its natural antibacterial oils. You chew until the end softens into bristles and scrub. The taste is sharp, woody, faintly bitter, effective. Yes, pleasant, absolutely not. If you are wealthier, you might smear a concoction of pumice salt and mint onto your teeth. It works, though it feels more like rubbing sandpaper across your gums. Now comes the part that modern fashionistas would applaud makeup. Both men and women dip small sticks into ground galena or malachite mixed with fat, painting heavy lines of kohl around their eyes. The result, a look dramatic enough to intimidate even your modern eyeliner tutorial. But this isn't vanity alone. The kohl shields against the desert sun, wards off flies, and in a mystical sense, protects from evil spirits. Your smoky eye isn't for Friday night out. It's spiritual armor. You catch your reflection in a polished bronze mirror, distorted but enough to reveal those sharp black lines extending past your temples. They make you look fierce, timeless, otherworldly. And yet, if you're honest, the application is a mess. The brush is rough, your hands are unsteady, and that smudge beneath your eye. Let's call it divinely inspired. The air is thick, with sense-crushed minerals, animal fat, the faint tang of resin burned to mask odors. Wealthier homes might add perfumed oils of lotus or frankincense. You, on the other hand, smell faintly of sweat smoke and hope. Here's the darkly comic truth in modern times. You complain about the price of toothpaste or eyeliner. In Egypt, your beauty routine might literally blind you. Prolonged exposure to lead-based coal damaged eyes. But hey, what's a little poison when it doubles as both sunscreen and exorcism? And so cleansed, painted, and armored, you are ready to face the day. Not glamorous, not fresh in the modern sense, but in the eyes of Ra and your neighbors, you look exactly as you should. Human, shaped by ritual, framed by the dust and light of the Nile. If you thought eyeliner was a 5-minute job, welcome to ancient Egypt, where painting your face each morning was equal parts survival style and sacred duty. You sit cross-legged on the clay floor beside a low wooden table, or simply a reed mat laid with jars, palettes, and brushes. The light streaming through the narrow window catches flecks of green malachite and black galena powders stored in its alabaster pots. They sparkle faintly as if fragments of the desert night sky have been ground down just for you. The powders are mixed with oil or fat until they form a slick paste, which you apply with a small bronze stick. The texture is thick, almost greasy, dragging across your skin with a tug that makes your eyes water. Around you, the morning hum of the household continues. Bread baking, children squabbling, animals braying. But in this corner, the ritual feels almost solemn as the brush sweeps outward past the corner of your eye. The line elongates like the wings of Horus himself. To the Egyptians, these strokes are not decoration. They are shields, protection against the glare of the desert sun, against the flies that carry infection, against spirits that prowl unseen. Your eye is not merely an eye. It becomes the eye of Horus, a symbol painted into your flesh. The mirror you use is polished bronze, warped and hazy. You lean closer, seeing not yourself exactly, but a shimmering version of you, timeless, blurred, half divine. The surface reflects not just your face, but the candle flicker, the dust, the gold shimmer of dawn. And for a fleeting moment, You believe you are beautiful, even if your fingers are clumsy and the coal smudges like a child's doodle. If you are wealthy, this ritual is even more elaborate. Servants prepare palettes, grinding fresh minerals, arranging tiny boxes of pigments, and setting out perfumed oils to smooth your skin. Perfume from blue lotus blossoms drips onto your wrists, filling the room with a sweet, heady fragrance. But even if you are poor with nothing more than a lump of galena and a reed brush, you would not dare face the day bare-eyed. To leave your house without coal is like walking into a battlefield without armor. And here comes the dark humor. While you worry today about makeup brands being cruelty-free in Egypt, your eyeliner literally contained lead. It gave you style, yes, but it also slowly poisoned you. Imagine looking fabulous while shaving years off your life. Then again, what is beauty if not a deadly gamble? Makeup in Egypt was gender neutral long before our modern debates. Men, women, even children had their share of pots and palettes. A laborer might apply only a thin line for practicality, while a nobleman would sweep dramatic wings across his temples, signaling wealth and taste. There is no such thing as too much coal. The only danger was not enough. As you finish, you feel transformed. Your reflection stares back fierce and mystical. The lines curve outward like the rays of Ra himself. You are no longer merely human. You are painted into the cosmic order, anointed with dust and oil, prepared to endure the searing day ahead. The first meal of the day in ancient Egypt is less about indulgence and more about survival or spectacle, depending on which side of the Nile's social ladder you happen to fall. Picture this. The wealthy merchant reclines in his shaded courtyard, the stone floor cooled by jars of water left out overnight. On his low table sits a spread that might make even a modern brunch influencer jealous. Freshly baked bread, golden and still steaming. Honey oozing from clay jars, thick and sticky, its sweetness clinging to fingers like amber. Figs split open their crimson centers, glowing like jewels, while dates lie piled in a bowl, dark and glossy as polished wood. A wedge of goat cheese sits nearby, its sharp tang cutting through the sweetness. And if last night's feast left behind a bit of roasted goose or beef, it's reheated and served without ceremony, a luxury most Egyptians could only dream of. And then, of course, there's beer. Yes, beer at breakfast. Not the frat party kind, but thick porridge-like beer, rich with grains low in alcohol, and safer than most water. Even children drink it, their lips coated with a frothy film that tastes faintly sour, grainy, and warm. Imagine sending your 6-year-old to school after a mug of barley mash. Modern parents would faint, but here it's simply nutrition in liquid form. Liquid bread dense with calories, and safer than a gulp from the Nile. Now, contrast this with the farmer's breakfast, and the mood changes sharply. His table, if you can call it that, is rough wood, or simply the ground outside his door. On it lies coarse bread, heavy and uneven, flecked with grit from the stone quern. Bite into it, and you taste not only grain, but sand tiny shards, grinding down enamel like invisible files. Alongside the bread, a bulb of onion or clove of garlic provides pungent heat, strong enough to sting the eyes and mask the taste of bland dough. Sometimes, herbs steeped in water give flavor to the drink. Sometimes it's weak beer, watery and sour. Meat. Forget it unless it's a festival day or the gods themselves intervene. Fresh fruit appears only in season. a brief flicker of sweetness before vanishing for months. Here is the cruel comedy. Both rich and poor begin their day with bread and beer, yet the quality marks the chasm between classes. For the wealthy, bread is white, fine, airy. For the poor, it is dense, brown, and abrasive, chewing more like punishment than pleasure. Your teeth ache, your jaw stiffens, but you chew because hunger is worse. Archaeologists examining mummies can literally see the social divide written in enamel, the privileged smell of smooth teeth versus the ground down stumps of laborers. The sensory world of breakfast is vivid. In the wealthy home, the air smells of sweetness, dates caramelizing in the sun, honey clinging to warm bread, a hint of lotus oil perfuming the courtyard. In the farmer's hut, it is the sharp, almost acrid bite of onion mingling with smoke sweat and the earthy musk of animals tethered just outside the wall. The sounds differ too, laughter and music drifting from noble courtyards versus the rasp of stone on grain, the scrape of clay bowls, the low grumble of tired voices, sharing another round of rough bread. And here's the dark humor: onions, garlic, and beer, taken together, made up the deodorant of the poor. Breakfast didn't just fuel the day, it perfumed it, in ways your modern colleagues might not appreciate in a crowded elevator. You wouldn't survive a single office meeting smelling like an ancient Egyptian farmer, not unless your coworkers were saints. And yet, despite these contrasts, there is a strange equality. Everyone from scribe to shepherd, from noblewoman to potter's child, begins the day with bread and beer. It is the common thread woven through the tapestry of Egyptian life, uniting rich and poor, divine and mortal. The difference lies in flavor, not form. Bread is life, beer is water, and onions are the punctuation of every meal. Imagine yourself tearing into your loaf. If you are wealthy, your fingers sink into soft dough honey dripping down your wrist. If you are poor, your jaw strains against dense bread, the onion's fire filling your nostrils. Either way, you chew, you swallow, you carry on because the sun has risen. Ra sails his bark across the sky, and your stomach, no matter your status, demands its due. So breakfast in Egypt is not just a meal, it is a mirror. It reflects wealth, labor, faith, and survival. It tells you who you are and where you stand in the hierarchy. And it sets you marching into the heat of the day with crumbs in your beard, beer in your belly, and onions in your breath. The sun climbs higher, and with it comes the rhythm of labor. For most Egyptians, work is not a choice. It is the spine of existence. And for you as a farmer along the Nile, the shape of your life is dictated by the river's moods. The Nile is not just water. It is time itself, divided into 3 sacred seasons: Akhet, the flood; Peret, the planting; Shemu, the harvest. Each year, without fail, the river swells from rains far to the south, spilling across fields in a slow-motion miracle. When the water recedes, it leaves behind dark silt, so rich it seems almost alive. You know this cycle better than you know your own heartbeat. Miss the rhythm and your family starves. During Akhet, your fields are underwater. There is no planting, no harvesting, only waiting. Some farmers are conscripted into grand projects: for the pharaoh digging canals, hauling stone raising temples that scrape the sky. Others repair tools, weave baskets, or offer their backs to neighbors wealthier than themselves. You watch the waters rise, sometimes with awe, sometimes with dread. Too little, flood and famine gnaws the land. Too much, and houses vanish beneath the current. Either way, Your life is at the mercy of water you cannot control. When Pare arrives, you walk your oxen into the fields, the soil soft and black beneath their hooves. A wooden plow digs shallow furrows, the animals snorting as flies swarm their backs. You drop seeds by hand, barley, emmer, wheat flax, each grain a prayer. Children scatter behind you, clapping to scare away birds. The sun beats down, sweat prickles your neck, and dust clings to your skin like a second garment. The work is endless, but every handful of seed feels like hope pressed into earth. By Shamu, the harvest your fields, ripple gold under the blazing sky. You bend low, sickle in hand, slicing stalks that fall into woven baskets. The air is filled with the hiss of blades and the rustle of straw, a chorus of survival. Your children dart between sheaves, gathering stray stalks. Women winnow grain in great arcs, chaff blowing into the wind, grain tumbling heavy into baskets. The sound is hypnotic. Swoosh, thud, swoosh, thud. Each basket filled is another day your family will eat. But the river's gifts come with chains. Taxes are exacted not in coins but in grain. Scribes arrive with tallies, their reed pens, scratching on papyrus. You watch your harvest shrink as officials scoop bushels into government stores. It is not theft, it is duty. Pharaoh must feed armies, workers, priests. Still, when your granary echoes hollow in midwinter, you curse the Nile and the crown alike. The sensory palate of your labor is vivid. The smell of wet earth after the flood, thick, fertile, slightly sour. The taste of sweat dripping into your mouth as you bend under the sun. The scratch of rough linen against your skin, stiff with dust and salt. Your muscles burn, your knees ache, your back feels carved from stone. And yet you endure because the Nile waits for no one, and hunger is a god more merciless than Ra. And here's the humor carved in cruelty. Archaeologists call you the backbone of Egypt. In truth, you are the spine that bends until it cracks. Your hands are cracked too, nails caked with dirt, palms calloused into leather. The monuments tourists admire millennia later. Temples, tombs, pyramids exist because during Akhet, when your fields lay underwater, you were ordered to drag limestone across blistering sand. Your sweat is mortar, your bones, the scaffolding of eternity. Yet still, when you walk home at dusk, the sun bleeding into the Nile, you feel something close to pride. Your belly may ache with hunger, your body sag with exhaustion, but your work keeps the gods appeased and the granaries filled. Bread and beer tomorrow exist because you bent your back today, and so you trudge on feet coated in dust, knowing the cycle will begin again, as predictably as the rivers rise. The fields are never empty hands. When harvest comes, every member of the household has a task, and women and children step into the rhythm as naturally as the Nile swells and recedes. Women stand in the fields beside men, their linen dresses stained with dust, sweat darkening the fabric along their backs. Their arms are strong from years of lifting baskets, grinding grain and hauling jars of water. They move with practiced grace, bending to cut flax, gathering sheaves of barley, sifting grain in wide-woven trays. The air fills with the steady whoosh of winnowing arms, rising high grain, tossed skyward husk, drifting away on the breeze. Every flick of the wrist is a small act of magic transforming raw harvest into food. Children trail like shadows, too small to wield sickles, but eager to prove themselves. They scurry between the adults, plucking stray stalks left behind, chasing away birds with claps and shouts. Some sing chants to keep pace, their voices high and bright against the heavy labor. Their bare feet kick up puffs of dust, their laughter clashing with the groan of oxen and the rasp of blades. It is play, but it is also duty. Childhood here is short because hunger waits for no one. Inside the home, women take on another cycle of work. Grain must be dried, stored, and guarded. In shaded courtyards, they spread stalks on mats, turning them with long sticks. The air smells of sun-warmed straw, sharp and dry. Granaries, small mud brick silos, are filled and sealed with clay. Each one is a fortress against famine. Though rats gnaw at the edges and thieves eye them hungrily, women measure and ration, ensuring that what fills baskets in Shamu still fills bellies months later. The rhythm of women's labor is endless. By day they harvest and store. By night they grind grain into flour, their bodies hunched over grinding stones. Knees grow calloused, shoulders knot with pain, fingers wear raw. Archaeologists can read this story in bone, spines, warped joints, eroded skeletons, permanently bent by bread making. Behind every loaf that feeds a family lies a woman's weary body, etched by work invisible in temple reliefs, but carved into her bones forever. And children, their bones tell stories too. Malnourishment lines their ribs, worn joints, whisper of labor begun too young. Yet their drawings on shards of pottery, stick figures of oxen boats and gods, show that even in toil imagination blooms. They learn not only how to work, but also how to live inside stories, tales of Ra Spark of Osiris, ruling the underworld of Horus, avenging his father. Work and myth are braided together like flax strands twisted into rope. Here's the dark humor. In modern times, you might reward kids with screen time for chores. In ancient Egypt, the reward for scaring birds from the fields was not starving that winter. Try convincing a child today that chasing sparrows is entertainment. In Egypt, it was literally a game of life and death. Women's work carries dignity, though rarely prestige. A noble woman might oversee servants doing the grinding, her hands soft, her hair scented with lotus oil. But the majority of women bent over stones, shoulders red from sun, find no such luxury. Still, their role is vital. Without them, there is no bread, no beer, no survival. While men's labor is etched in monumental temples, women's labor is etched in the continuity of daily life. The invisible empire of kitchens and fields. As the harvest day ends, women balance baskets on their heads, walking in straight lines toward home. The baskets sway with rhythm, their shadows long against the sand. Children stumble behind exhausted cheeks, smudged with dust bellies already rumbling. The sky turns copper as the sun dips, and the village hums with the chatter of families returning from the fields. This is the pulse of Egypt, not pharaohs or priests, but women and children, grinding, carrying, storing, gathering. Their work does not earn inscriptions on temple walls, but it keeps the living alive and the cycle unbroken. Not everyone bends over fields. Some bend over wood, stone, clay, or copper, their bodies marked not by plows, but by chisels and mallets. You might be one of them, an artisan, a craftsman, your hands less calloused by soil, but scarred by tools, your back curved not from harvesting stalks, but from leaning over a workbench in dim light. Imagine stepping into a workshop in ancient Egypt. The air smells of sawdust, hot resin, and the metallic tang of copper shavings. The space is small, crowded, alive with noise. Wooden mallets thud rhythmically against chisels. Reed brushes sweep dust from carvings. Fires roar in clay furnaces where bronze is melted, glowing like miniature suns before being poured into molds. Every corner is a chorus of labor, the scratch of carving, the hiss of quenching the grunt of lifting. If you are a carpenter, you carve beds, stools, and coffins. Yes, coffins, because in Egypt, death is an industry. The wealthy order elaborate sarcophagi, painted with spells and symbols to guide souls into the afterlife. Your chisel bites into cedar imported from Lebanon wood, so precious it is guarded like gold. Each strike of your hand carves not just a shape, but a passage into eternity. And yet, when you return home, your own bed is little more than straw on clay. If you are a potter, your hands are coated in red Nile clay, cool and slick as you spin the wheel. Vases take shape beneath your finger, narrowing into elegant necks, flaring into wide bellies. The kiln roars smoke, curling skyward, carrying the smell of burning chaff. Pottery is the skeleton of daily life jars for beer bowls, for stew, amphorae, for oil. Break one, and you curse not because it is sacred, but because it means fewer vessels to store food against hunger. Stone carvers chip away at limestone or granite, the air filled with the sharp clink of metal on stone. Dust clouds your nostrils, coats your throat until you cough. Your hands blister, your arms ache, but the figure of a god slowly emerges from the rock. Statues, temple walls, even humble gravestones bear your mark. The pharaoh may claim divinity, but it is your hammer that shapes his eternal image. Jewelry makers sit hunched over tiny beads of faience and carnelian, threading them into necklaces that glimmer like sunlight on the Nile. Goldsmiths hammer thin sheets of precious metal, the ringing of their tools, a delicate counterpoint to the roar of forges. The wealthy adorn themselves with these treasures, their status displayed in gleaming collars and anklets. You meanwhile wear only the dust of your labor. The sensory world of craftsmanship is intense. The heat of the forge sears your skin. The dust of stone sticks to your sweat, gritty on your tongue. The steady vibration of tools numbs your fingers until you no longer feel the difference between flesh and wood. Your body aches, but your mind sharpens. You are not just making objects, you are shaping memory, identity, and ritual. And here's the irony. Your work is immortal, but you are not. Tourists thousands of years later will marvel at golden masks, elegant pottery, towering statues. They will gasp at the artistry whisper about the genius of ancient Egypt. But your name forgotten, your bones dust. Your fingerprints remain only in the clay pots you left behind, pressed there by accident, unnoticed for millennia. The humor is bitter. You may spend your life carving a pharaoh's tomb so that his afterlife is secure, while your own afterlife depends on whether your family remembered to leave enough offerings. You build eternity for others while living on scraps yourself. It is as if the universe itself is your boss, demanding overtime, never paying enough, and certainly not offering retirement benefits. Yet there is pride. When the light slants just right across the lines you've carved, when a pot emerges smooth and balanced, when a coffin gleams with paint that shimmers in torchlight, you feel the satisfaction of mastery. The work may break your body, but it also shapes your soul. You are an artisan of Egypt. Your labor invisible in temples, yet eternal in stone, wood, and clay. When the fields quiet and the workshops hum, there is another heartbeat to Egyptian life, the rhythm of trade. If you are a merchant, your wealth is not plowed into the soil or hammered into stone, but carried on boats, camels, and your own quick tongue. Picture yourself standing at the edge of the Nile's bustling quay. The river is alive with traffic, narrow boats gliding on the current, their sails catching the wind like white wings, barges loaded with amphora stacked high, bobbing precariously. The air is a storm of smells, fish drying in the sun, resin burning from incense stalls, sweat from dock workers straining under baskets of grain. Voices rise and fall in haggling choruses, each vendor promising the best figs, the finest beer, the most durable sandals. Your livelihood lies in this chaos. You carry papyrus scrolls with tally marks, notes of goods owed and payments due. Grain is the currency of the land, but other values ripple through your hands. Copper ingots, silver rings, jars of honey, bolts of linen. Coins do not yet jingle in your purse. Wealth is measured in sacks, jars, and trust. Every trade is a negotiation, every handshake a gamble. You deal in more than food. Exotic goods slip into Egypt, along caravan routes and across the sea. From Nubia come gold nuggets and ivory tusks, from the Levant cedarwood, and wine from Punt frankincense and myrrh. Each object smells of distance, of lands you may never see, but whose essence passes through your grasp. When you uncork a jar of wine, the scent is foreign, rich, sharp, intoxicating, a reminder that Egypt is not an island, but the hub of a vast web of exchange. The work is less muscle, more wit. You must read people as easily as scribes read papyrus. A furrowed brow, a twitch of lips, the hesitation before an offer, all tell you where profit hides. One bad bargain, and you return home with less than you carried. One clever deal, and your household eats like nobility. The sensory world here is frenetic. Your ears buzz with bartering, the rapid-fire exchange of numbers and promises. Your skin feels the press of the crowd, elbows jostling, shoulders brushing. Your mouth dries from the dust of the quay, only to be sweetened by the taste of dates offered as samples. The Nile breeze cools your face, even as the sun scorches your head. It is not the steady rhythm of farming or the focused silence of carving. It is noise, heat pulse. Here's the humor. You spend your life surrounded by wealth, perfumes, metals, fabrics, but most of it passes straight through your hands. Like a cashier in a modern luxury store, you can touch treasures, but rarely own them. You count jars of honey you'll never taste, fold bolts of linen you'll never wear, sniff spices you'll never cook with. Riches slip away the moment they arrive, and your role is to smile as they vanish. Still there is status in movement. While farmers are tied to the rhythm of the flood, and artisans to the rhythm of chisels, you ride the rhythm of markets. You hear news from travelers, gossip from distant lands, rumors of kings and wars. You are both merchant and messenger, your livelihood braided with stories as much as goods. When evening comes and you tally your earnings, the scratch of reed pen on papyrus feels almost holy. Each mark is proof that you bent the chaos of the market into order. You roll the scroll, tie it with cord, and place it carefully among your wares. Tomorrow you will return to the quay, to the shouting and smells and bargains. Tomorrow the river will carry new boats, new goods, new chances, and so your life flows like the Nile itself, restless, ceaseless, sometimes generous, sometimes cruel, but always moving. Among all the workers of Egypt, none hold power, quite like the scribes. You may think the Pharaoh rules the land, priests rule the temples, or farmers feed the kingdom, but in truth, it is the one who holds the reed pen, who decides what truly lives and what vanishes. If you are a scribe, your tool is not the plow or the chisel, it is the sharpened reed dipped in black ink. Your day begins not in the field, but in the shade of a cool chamber, papyrus spread before you like the surface of the Nile. The air smells of ink made from soot and gum, sharp and earthy, a perfume of intellect. Beside you, red ink waits for emphasis, like blood in reserve. You hold the reed fan between your fingers, its tip chewed to softness, and draw the flowing curves of hieroglyphs across the page. Each stroke is deliberate, steady, alive. You are the keeper of records, harvest tallies, tax rolls, temple offerings, royal decrees. When a farmer delivers grain, it is your pen that confirms his debt or his freedom. When a craftsman finishes a commission, your writing determines whether he is paid or forgotten. The scribe is the silent overseer, the bureaucratic god who shapes reality with lines of ink. Becoming a scribe is no easy path. Your childhood was not spent chasing birds in the fields, but bent over broken pottery shards, practicing symbols until your wrist ached. Teachers rapped your knuckles when you faltered, forced you to copy texts line after line until your fingers cramped. The smell of ink and dust clung to you. The rasp of reed pen became the music of your youth, your reward. Freedom from the plow, freedom from grinding stones. Where others' bodies broke, yours endured. Though your eyes grew weak, your back hunched, your hand permanently curled around an invisible pen. The sensory world of the scribe is quiet but intense. You taste the dryness of the air in archives, smell the faint must of papyrus, scrolls stacked in rows. Your fingertips feel the slick smoothness of ink when you refill your palette, the rough texture of unpolished papyrus beneath your palm. Your ears strain to catch dictation from priests or officials' voices echoing off stone walls. In these small sensations lies the texture of authority. And here's the humor. You may look frail next to a farmer or artisan, your hands uncalloused, your muscles thin, yet with a flick of your reed, you can strip a man of his harvest, elevate another to wealth, or immortalize a name for eternity. Call it ancient Egypt's version of keyboard warriors. You sit in the shade scratching symbols while others sweat in the sun. But unlike today's comment sections, your words carry the weight of law. The irony is cruel. You preserve the names of pharaohs, generals, and nobles, but rarely your own. History remembers kings because you wrote them down. It forgets you because no one wrote your name. Your existence is in the margins, an invisible architect of memory, and yet without you the kingdom would collapse into chaos. At the end of the day, you roll the scrolls, tie them with linen cords, and stack them neatly. The ink stains on your fingers will never wash off completely. They are badges of your profession. You leave the chamber not with sore muscles, but with a sore wrist, your body less broken, but your mind weary. Tomorrow you will return to ink and papyrus, to the endless flow of records. And long after your body crumbles, your words will remain whispering across millennia while your name fades to dust. In most ancient cultures, women's lives were confined to shadows hidden behind walls, their names absent from records. But in Egypt, you discover something startling. As a woman, you are not invisible. You can own property, sign contracts, bring cases before a court. The law recognizes you not as an extension of your husband, but as a person in your own right. Imagine walking into a bustling marketplace. The air is thick with dust and spices the scent of onions and freshly baked bread, mixing with sweat. Men call out their wares. Children dart between baskets, and there you are, negotiating prices, signing agreements, sealing deals. Your linen dress may cling to your skin. In the heat, your hair braided and scented with oil, but your voice carries weight. You can buy a field rent, a boat hire laborers. The papyrus contract with your name on it is binding. For a moment, you stand taller than history expects of you. At home, your freedom continues. If your marriage falters, you can divorce. Not quietly, not hidden, but legally with rights to property and custody. You may return to your family's house, your dowry intact, your dignity bruised, but not erased. In a world where women elsewhere were little more than possessions, Egypt allows you to reclaim yourself. The sensory world of this freedom is subtle but powerful. The scratch of a scribe's reed as he writes your name, the cool touch of a clay seal pressed into wax, the weight of a copper key in your palm. These are not abstract rights, they are tangible, heavy, real. Each contract you hold, each seal you press, is proof that you exist not only as a wife or mother, but as an individual. And here's the irony, laced with humor. Thousands of years later, modern women would still fight for rights you casually exercised by the banks of the Nile. While some parts of today's world argue whether women can sign contracts without permission, you are here in 1500 BCE, buying land with barley and honey. History may be progressive in strange, uneven ways. Of course, reality is not equality. Most women live not as property owners, but as laborers, vendors, or farmers. Your freedom is bounded by your class, your wealth, your family. But compared to Greece, where a woman's name could not even be spoken in public, or Rome, where law placed her under eternal guardianship, Egypt's women walk in rare sunlight. Your reflection in the bronze mirror is not just coal-lined eyes and perfumed hair, it is the glimmer of independence. And though the world beyond your borders will stumble and regress here, at least you breathe. As more than shadow, step into the market again, but this time, not as a customer, you are the vendor. The Nile breeze stirs dust along the packed earth. Voices rise in a chorus of bargaining, and the smell of beer brewing drifts from a nearby tavern. Behind your stall sits baskets of vegetables, loaves of bread, jars of oil, or strings of dried fish. You, a woman of Egypt, conduct business openly, your hands busy, your eyes sharp. Women are not confined to weaving baskets in silence. You are allowed, even expected, to engage in commerce. Some run taverns, pouring beer into clay mugs, while laughter and gossip swirl around them. Others sell linen their fingers, quick to measure, fold, and barter. Still others trade in perfumes, blending oils from lotus and myrrh, their stalls thick with sweet fragrance. Your voice carries over the crowd, striking bargains, raising prices, cutting deals. You don't need a man to stand behind you. The law is your shield and your wit, your sword. In the artisan quarter, women's labor is equally visible. You might be shaping beads of faience, your fingertips sticky with glaze, or threading carnelian into necklaces that glitter like captured fire. The clink of stones, the hiss of kilns, the chatter of apprentices fills the air. Jewelry is not merely adornment, but a language of status and protection. Each piece you make tells a story of wealth, of piety, of love. And you, with soot under your nails and the smell of heated stone in your hair, are the unseen narrator. Weaving is another domain where women excel. In courtyards shaded by reed mats, you sit at looms, fingers darting across threads like birds in flight. The linen hums beneath your touch, whispering as it tightens into cloth. The rhythm is hypnotic, pull, twist, not pull. Your body sways with the motion, your back stiffening, your shoulders burning, yet the fabric grows steadily. Linen is Egypt's skin bandages, for the living wrappings, for the dead garments, for pharaohs, and shrouds for peasants. Every thread spun by your hand ties you into the fabric of eternity. Here's the wry humor. While men's monuments tower in stone, your creations disintegrate quietly with time. The bread you baked, the cloth you wove, the perfume you mixed, gone in centuries, leaving only faint traces. Yet these fleeting works sustained life more deeply than statues or pyramids. Without your beer, the workers could not build. Without your cloth, the dead could not be buried. Without your bread, the hungry would not endure. You are the scaffolding of daily existence, invisible only because history prefers stone to straw. But sometimes, women rise beyond stalls and looms. Records show female landowners managing estates, hiring laborers, paying scribes. Some even commissioned tombs decorated with their own images, faces lined with coal hands outstretched in eternal offering. Their names endure in ink proof that women's ambition could echo into the afterlife. The sensory world of your labor is textured, the rough handle of a bask cutting into your palm, the yeasty smell of fermenting beer, the tickle of fibers caught in your throat as you weave, the sticky sweetness of resin on your skin as you seal jars. These sensations blur into routine, yet each holds the pulse of survival. So while grand narratives of Egypt dwell on kings and priests, your daily work in stalls and workshops sustains the rhythm of civilization. You may not sit on a throne, but your seat at the market stall is a kingdom of its own, built with jars, fabrics, and the quiet power of persistence. Step away from the marketplace and workshops, and you will find women shaping not just bread or linen, but the spiritual heartbeat of Egypt. Religion and ritual saturate every corner of life, and women stand at its center, sometimes quietly, sometimes dazzlingly, but always present. At festivals, women become the pulse of celebration. Imagine the temple courtyard at dusk. Torches flare, drums thunder, flutes keen in the warm air. You stand in the crowd swaying to rhythms that seem older than the stones beneath your feet. Women raise their voices in chants high and piercing, carrying prayers to the ears of the gods. Others dance their movements, fluid, their jewelry clinking like rainfall, their coal-lined eyes catching the flicker of firelight. To watch them is to see the gods themselves reflected in human form. In funerary rituals, women perform a role both sacred and haunting, that of the professional mourner, hired to well tear at their hair and beat their breasts. These women embody grief itself. Their cries rise above the funerary procession, sharp and guttural, echoing off stone walls. The sound is not performance, but conjuration, meant to call the attention of Osiris and guide the dead to safe passage. If you were there, you'd feel the hair on your arms rise. Grief made audible is a power that shakes even the hardest heart. But women are not only mourners. Some rise to priesthood, serving goddesses like Hathor or Isis. Picture a woman in flowing linen robes, lotus oil perfuming her hair, standing before an altar laden with bread, beer, and incense. She raises her arms, her bracelets catching light, her voice steady as she recites hymns. The air thickens with frankincense, curling upward in lazy tendrils. For a moment, she is not a servant of the divine, but its vessel, her body and voice a conduit between gods and mortals. Music, too, is shaped by women, harps, lutes, and sistrums. The jingling metallic rattle sacred to Hathor are often played by female musicians. Their melodies weave through banquets, liven temple ceremonies, and soothe noble households. Close your eyes, and you can almost hear it, strings vibrating softly, bronze discs clashing in bright rhythm voices, humming lullabies that blur the line between music and magic. These women are not passive entertainers. They are culture bearers, weaving joy, devotion, and memory into sound. Here's the irony, served with a dark chuckle. History remembers kings who built monuments, but forgets the voices that sang at their coronations, the women whose cries carried their souls to eternity. You might find an inscription praising a pharaoh's victory, but rarely will you find the name of the woman whose hymn turned him divine. The silence of history hides them, even as their echoes still vibrate in tomb walls, and yet fragments survive. Painted reliefs show women playing instruments, dancing in festivals, pouring libations in temples. Ostraca scribbled by apprentices, record songs sung by female voices. Even in the gaps of history, their presence leaks through like water, finding cracks in stone. The sensory world of women in ritual is rich. The heavy scent of resin burned on altars, the warm press of bodies swaying in crowded processions, the rough linen of temple robes scratching the skin, the shimmer of gold jewelry catching firelight, the cries of mourners, the rattle of sistrums, the rhythm of hands clapping syncopated with footsteps. To stand in the middle of it is to be wrapped in a tapestry of devotion and sound. So while women's names may not be carved in monumental hieroglyphs, their voices, bodies, and rituals shape the texture of Egyptian spiritual life. They may not sit beside pharaohs on thrones, but they stand at the crossroads of earth and heaven, giving shape to joy, grief, and faith. When you finish in the market or workshop, your day does not end. It only shifts. At home, a different kind of work awaits one no less exhausting. If you are a woman in ancient Egypt, your life is a balance between two relentless worlds, the public and the private. You step into the courtyard, dust clinging to your sandals, baskets weighing on your arms. The air smells of smoke, curling from clay ovens, mingled with the sour, sweet tang of fermenting beer jars tucked into corners. Children swarm around you, tugging at your dress voices, high and insistent. You set down your wares and immediately turn to kneading dough, stoking the fire, fetching water. The muscles that carried baskets through the market now strain over grinding stones, your palms pressing flour into bread, your back bent in the same posture you held all day. The sensory world is thick. The rasp of querns grinding grain fills your ears a rhythm as constant as your own heartbeat. The texture of sticky dough clings to your fingers, drying into cracks in your skin. The heat of the oven flushes your cheeks, sweat trickling down your temples. And always the chorus of children's voices laughing, whining, crying, threads through the work relentless as the desert sun. Your role as mother is not confined to cooking. You nurse infants, braid your daughter's hair, teach sons their first letters or prayers. You patch garments by the light of oil lamps, the smell of burning fat sharp in your nose. You weave mats from reeds, your fingers aching your eyes, straining in the dim glow. Sleep comes late, and even then it is light, broken by the wails of a child or the grunt of animals outside. Here's the cruel humor. Men boast of their labor in fields or workshops, their muscles taut, their hands scarred. But you carry two worlds on your shoulders, invisible in official records, yet heavier than stone. Your husband might sigh about taxes, but you juggle the economy of survival, stretching grain to last until harvest, trading scraps with neighbors, nursing the sick while grinding the next day's flour. Pharaoh builds monuments, you build continuity. Archaeologists glimpse this burden in bones as much as in texts. Female skeletons show compressed vertebrae, arthritic knees, arms, worn from repetitive grinding. Even their teeth bear the cost enamel chipped, not only by gritty bread, but also by threads clenched between jaws while weaving. The body itself is an archive of double labor, and yet there is resilience. Women forge networks of support, gossiping across courtyards, sharing tools, swapping food. A neighbor may help grind flour one evening. Another may watch children while you fetch water. These invisible webs hold the community together stronger than the mud brick walls around you. Sometimes, though, your labor is recognized. A hymn might praise a woman as mistress of the house, a title acknowledging her command of domestic rhythms. Tomb paintings occasionally depict wives and mothers, not merely as attendants to men, but as pillars of family life. These images, though rare, hint at a truth larger than official history admits. The irony stings. Kings are immortalized for battles and monuments, while women who fought daily wars against hunger, sickness, and fatigue remain mostly unnamed. But their legacy lingers in every loaf of bread, every woven cloth, every child raised into the next generation. Without their dual burden, Egypt's grandeur would have collapsed. So when you picture yourself in this role, see not just toil, but tenacity. Your life is hard, unrelenting, but your hands steady, the kingdom in ways invisible, yet indispensable. You are both the worker in the market and the keeper of the hearth, carrying Egypt in your baskets by day and in your arms by night. Not every woman bends over grinding stones or balances baskets on her head. Some rise higher, far higher, into the rarefied air of wealth and power. If you are born into nobility or married into it, your life is not free of burdens, but the weight you carry is gilded. Imagine stepping into a villa near Thebes. The floor is paved with painted tiles. Lotus blossoms bloom in shallow pools, and incense curls upward from bronze burners. Your linen dress is sheer and soft, woven so fine it rustles like whispers. Gold glitters at your wrists, heavy collars gleam across your chest, and your eyes are framed with lines of coal, so precise they rival temple carvings. When you walk, servants follow, fanning you, with palm fronds, carrying trays of figs, bread, and wine. The air smells not of smoke and sweat, but of lotus oil and imported cedar. As a noble woman, your authority is quiet but unmistakable. You manage estates, directing overseers to collect rents, order harvests, and maintain accounts. Scribes record your decisions, their reed pens scratching in deference. You may commission statues or chapels, dedicate offerings to temples, or arrange marriages that bind families together like ropes of papyrus. Your influence stretches far beyond your courtyard walls. And then there are the queen's women, whose power radiates like the sun itself. Think of Nefertiti, her elegant profile, immortalized in stone, or Hatshepsut, who claimed the full regalia of Pharaoh, her statues carved with false beards to embody kingship. These women are not shadows, they are sovereigns. Their names resound in temples, their faces painted on walls, their decisions shaping armies and trade routes. If you are such a queen, your mornings are not spent grinding grain, but granting audiences. Diplomats bow low before you, bearing gifts of lapis, lazuli, and ivory. Priests consult your favor before major rituals. In the great halls of Karnak or Luxor, your voice carries across columns, painted with scenes of gods, your commands echoing beneath ceilings, high as the heavens. To wield such power in a world still largely ruled by men is nothing short of miraculous. The sensory world here is drenched in luxury. Perfume clings to your skin, sweet and heady. Gold cuffs weigh on your arms, cool at first touch, but warming against your pulse. The hum of musicians fills the air strings, plucked softly sistrums, rattling in delicate rhythm. The taste of honeyed wine lingers on your tongue as servants refill your cup. The world bends toward you, even if history later bends away. And here's the irony, laced with humor, while you live wrapped in silks and sense your people chew sand-filled bread and swig beer that tastes like warm porridge. Their backs bend to build the temples where your name will shine, while your own hands rarely touch a tool heavier than a stylus. It's the original boss privilege you sip while they sweat, yet without them, your throne would crumble. Still, your power is real. In a land where women elsewhere vanish into obscurity, Egypt grants you presence. You are depicted on temple walls, seated beside kings, receiving offerings, sometimes even shown the same size as your husband. A radical equality in art, if not always in life. You may not march with armies, but you move them with words. You may not carve stone, but your will is carved into law. And when death comes, your tomb rivals that of kings. Painted walls depict you not in toil, but in eternal leisure banquets, with overflowing platters, music that never ceases, perfumed oils that never run dry. Priests chant your name, ensuring your soul sails with Ra across the sky, while countless women's names dissolve into silence. Yours endures inked into stone, whispered across millennia. So whether as noble woman or queen, you embody a paradox. You are both exception and symbol, rare in number, but vast in influence. You remind us that in Egypt, unlike most of the ancient world, women could climb to the very heights of power, sometimes beside men, sometimes above them, always leaving an imprint deeper than time expected. Every civilization builds its roads, but in Egypt, the greatest highway is not stone, It is water. The Nile is your lifeline, your marketplace, your messenger. Without it, the desert swallows everything. With it, Egypt breathes. At dawn, the river glitters like a strip of hammered bronze boats dotting its surface. Their sails billow white against the sky, catching the morning wind. Barges creak under the weight of grain sacks, stacked high, while smaller reed boats skim the current, paddles dipping rhythmically. The air is thick with the smell of mudfish drying in the sun and smoke from cooking fires on deck. You step onto a boat, the planks hot beneath your bare feet, the sway of water rocking you into rhythm. Transport here is communal. Grain flows north to feed cities, stone drifts down from quarries, papyrus bundles ride the current. Merchants, priests, farmers, all converge on the river. It is a place of encounters. Gossip travels faster than sales news carried from village to village. The Nile is not just water. It is information, connection, rumor. The sensory world is vivid. The slap of water against hulls, the cries of boatmen shouting for space, the flap of sails overhead. Sunlight glares off the surface, forcing you to squint beneath coal-lined eyes. Fish leap, breaking the stillness for a heartbeat. Crocodiles sometimes lurk at the edges, their eyes like polished stones just above the waterline. Hippopotamuses, massive and temperamental, grunt from reeds creatures as holy as they are dangerous. Here's the humor twisted in fear. You might pray to Sobek, the crocodile god, for protection even as you know his scaly servants are the ones most likely to capsize your boat and eat you. It's like asking the boss for mercy while he's the one who docked your pay. Still, faith keeps oars steady. Infrastructure along the banks reflects this watery highway. Quays jut into the current, built of stone blocks stacked with precision. Ramps slope from warehouses to water, groaning under the weight of laborers carrying amphorate, timber, or livestock. Donkeys bray as they're herded onto barges, their smell mingling with tar and fish. Villages cluster near the shore, their mud brick houses leaning toward the river as if worshipping it. Temples rise on higher ground, their pylons painted in bright colors, watching the traffic flow like eternal guardians. Yet travel is not only commerce, it is also pilgrimage. You might sail to a festival in Thebes, joining a flotilla of boats strung with garlands, music ringing across the water. Women clap and sing, men beat drums. Children dangle their feet into the Nile, shrieking with laughter. At night, lamps flicker on decks, their light scattering across rippling waves, like stars fallen to earth. Navigation is not without danger. The Nile flows north, but the wind often blows south. Boatmen master the art of balance raising sails to ride the wind upstream, lowering them to drift with the current down. A mistake means drifting into reeds where crocodiles wait, or capsizing when barges tip too far. More than one journey ends in tragedy. A cargo of grain sinking into the silt, feeding fish instead of mouths. And yet, despite risks, the river binds Egypt into one. Without it, villages would be isolated pockets in endless desert. With it, they are pearls strung along a single thread, glittering under the same sun. Your life, whether as farmer artisan or noble, is tied to its pulse. Bread in your basket, linen on your back. Incense in your temple, all traveled here by water. So when you step back onto shore, the Nile still glistening behind you, you know you have walked not just a road, but the artery of a civilization. Egypt flows, because the Nile flows carrying goods, people, and stories in its eternal current. Step away from the Nile's shimmer, and you find yourself on dusty roads that crisscross villages, quarries, and desert edges. They are not roads in the modern sense. No smooth stone paving, like in Rome centuries later. These are dirt tracks, beaten down by countless hooves, sandals, and wheels. The air is dry, the ground cracked to the horizon, stretching into waves of heat. You squint, and all you see is sand dust and the shimmer of movement far away. Travel here is slower, harsher, and always accompanied by animals. Donkeys are your trucks, their backs burdened with baskets of grain, jars of beer, bundles of reeds. Their brays echo through the air, stubborn and piercing, a soundtrack of the road. Camels will not arrive until later periods, so you rely on smaller, hardier beasts. A donkey may stumble, collapse, refuse to move, but without it, you would be forced to carry loads on your own shoulders, and your back is already breaking enough. Cattle, too, pull wooden sledges or carts. Picture oxen straining against yokes, their hooves digging into sand, dragging massive stones, destined for temples or tombs. The sound is brutal, wood creaking, ropes groaning, men shouting. Dust rises around you, stinging your eyes, coating your throat with grit. Each breath tastes of labor. The sensory world of the road is relentless. The heat presses down until your head throbs, sweat dripping into your eyes. Sand grinds between your teeth, rubs your skin raw beneath linen robes. The smell is a mix of dung sweat and sun-baked earth. You walk until your calves burn, your lips crack, your feet swell in their sandals of woven papyrus. Journeys that take you an hour today would take days then. A trip from Memphis to Thebes, weeks of trudging dust, camping by fires, swatting flies as you try to sleep under an unkind sky. And here's the humor laced with misery. There are no luxury carriages. The pharaoh might ride in a decorated chariot during festivals, its wheels gleaming, horses prancing. But your ride is a donkey with an attitude problem. And if you think your bus is crowded, try sharing the road with herds of goats, blocking the path, bleating as if they own it. Road rage existed only with more hooves and fewer horns. Infrastructure is minimal but practical. Wells dot the trade routes, dug deep into the earth, their cool water guarded fiercely. Rest stops are nothing more than shaded patches where caravans gather. You sit beneath palm leaves, sipping tepid water, chewing coarse bread, listening to merchants swap stories of bandits in the desert or storms in the delta. Night brings relief from heat, but also fear. Jackals howl in the dark, snakes slither across the sand, and scorpions lurk in your bedding. Still the roads matter. Without them, stone could not move from quarries to pyramids, nor grain from fields to storage. The Nile may be the grand artery, but the roads are its capillaries spreading lifeblood to the farthest reaches of the kingdom. Soldiers march them, officials inspect them, and traders depend on them. Every footstep you take adds to the invisible map that holds Egypt together. And yet travel always carries danger. Bandits haunt lonely stretches, their blades flashing in the sun, ready to strip you of your goods. A broken wheel or sick donkey can strand you in the desert, the horizon offering nothing but silence. Death comes quickly here, not from battle, but from thirst. One missed well, one wrong turn, and the sand becomes your tomb. So when you arrive dusty and exhausted at a village or temple, the relief is overwhelming. Cool water trickles down your throat. Bread fills your belly, and you thank every god you can name for carrying you safely. Tomorrow you may set out again, your donkey braying your feet, dragging the sun already rising. Travel in ancient Egypt is never truly safe. Whether by river or by road, danger waits in shadows, in reeds, in the silence of the desert. The Nile gives life, but it also takes it. Imagine yourself on a small boat, the water lapping gently against the hull. The sun blazes overhead, the current pulls steady, and for a moment you feel calm. Then you notice two yellow eyes, just above the surface, unblinking. A crocodile. Its body slides beneath the water, invisible except for the ripple of its tail. You grip your paddle tighter, heart pounding. These beasts strike without warning, jaws snapping with enough force to crush bone. You whisper a prayer to Sobek the crocodile god, hoping he favors you today. Hippopotamuses are no kinder. They lurk in reeds, massive bodies. Then there are the human threats. Bandits stalk lonely stretches of road, their eyes sharp, their blades sharper. They know where the wells are, where caravans must stop, where merchants carry goods. A sudden ambush, a flash of bronze, and your baskets of grain or jars of oil are gone. Worse, sometimes lives are taken, bodies left for jackals. The desert swallows evidence quickly. Bones vanish beneath shifting sands. The sensory world of these dangers is unforgettable. The stink of crocodile breath, drifting across still water, heavy and foul. The sharp sound of reeds snapping under the weight of a hippo's bulk. The dry whisper of sand underfoot when bandits approach, footsteps masked by the wind. Even the silence feels heavy, pressing on your ears, warning you that something waits just out of sight. Here's the bitter humor: you pray for safe travel, but your choices are absurd. On the river, you risk being eaten. On the road, you risk being robbed. Stay home, and you risk starving. It's like choosing between a nightmare buffet. Do you want your danger with scales, tusks, or swords? Egyptians were not naive to these threats. Temples honored gods of protection, amulets were worn against evil, and travelers often moved in groups for safety. Guards patrolled main trade routes, though their reach was limited. Fishermen sang loud songs on the Nile, partly for rhythm, partly to warn beasts away. Even so, every journey was a wager, every mile a gamble against toothclaw or blade, and yet travel continued. Merchants still sailed, farmers still ferried grain, pilgrims still walked to shrines, because danger was not an exception. It was the cost of movement. To live in Egypt was to accept risk as a constant companion. At night, when you sit by a fire at a roadside camp, the desert stretching dark in every direction, you hear distant howls of jackals. You clutch your cloak tighter, whispering prayers, your stomach tight with fear. Tomorrow the sun will rise, and you will walk or sail again. Danger does not vanish, it simply waits, and still you go. Not every journey is shadowed by fear. Sometimes the Nile becomes a stage, and boats turn into floating theaters of joy. Festivals transform the river from a channel of trade into a corridor of celebration. Picture this: the Feast of Opet in Thebes. The air shimmers with heat, but the river is alive with color. Boats strung with garlands of lotus flowers drift side by side, their sails painted in bright hues, their decks crowded with musicians. Drums, thunder, flutes, keen and sistrums rattle with metallic rhythm. Priests stand tall, their robes white against the sun. carrying statues of Amun Mut and Khonsu from Karnak to Luxor. The crowd roars as the gods travel by water, their presence shimmering like heat waves. You pressed among villagers, feel the river itself vibrate with music and chants. Children dangle their feet into the water, shrieking as splashes catch their skin. Women clap in rhythm, their bracelets chiming like bells. Beer jars are passed from hand to hand, frothy liquid spilling onto the boards. The smell of grilled fish wafts from small cooking fires, lit right on deck, mingling with the perfume of incense burning in clay pots. The Nile is no longer silent. It is a living drum. Travel becomes pilgrimage. Villagers who rarely leave their hamlets sail for hours, even days, to join the spectacle. Boats arrive from every bend of the river, tied together in long chains, their passengers singing in call and response that rolls across the current. The sound carries far, echoing between cliffs, bouncing off temple pylons, until the very water seems to chant. The sensory details are overwhelming. The slap of drums vibrating in your chest, the taste of dates sticky on your tongue, the warmth of sun mixed with the cool spray of waves. Garlands of lotus brush your skin, petals soft and damp. Smoke from incense curls around your head, sweet and heady, almost dizzying. Every sense is drenched, every moment alive. And here's the humor. While priests proclaim divine connection, half the crowd is just drunk and happy. Children throw bread crusts at each other. Men dance badly on rocking boats. Women laugh until their voices crack. Religion and revelry are not separate. They are twins, sharing the same boat. It's less silent worship and more floating street party. Yet beneath the joy lies something deeper. Festivals bind Egypt together. A farmer from a small delta village stands shoulder to shoulder with a merchant from Memphis, both chanting hymns, both swaying to music. The river erases boundaries of class and distance, turning everyone into passengers on the same divine journey. The gods travel by water, but so does community woven in laughter song and shared devotion. As night falls, lamps are lit on every deck. Their flames flicker against the dark, scattering across the Nile like a mirror of the stars above. Reflections ripple, breaking into shards of light. Music softens into hums, voices into murmurs. Families curl together, heads resting on each other's shoulders, lulled by the rhythm of waves. The festival drifts into dream, and for one night, the Nile carries not just goods and people, but joy itself. So while the Nile may terrify with crocodiles or rage with floods, it also cradles Egypt in moments of unity. On festival days, danger is forgotten, and the river becomes what it has always promised, not just survival, but life worth celebrating. If the Nile is Egypt's lifeline, then the canals are its veins, man-made arteries carved into earth to tame, redirect, and extend the river's gift. Without them, harvests would shrivel, villages would wither, and temples would stand hollow. With them, the desert blooms. Imagine the sight at the start of Akit, the flooding season. Waters surge, swallowing fields, lapping at village edges. Instead of waiting passively, Egyptians dig. Long trenches stretch like scars across the land, carved with wooden shovels and baskets of mud, hauled by hand. Men chant as they pass loads, their voices merging with the splash of water, filling new channels. The air smells of wet silt, pungent and heavy, coating your sandal, sticking between your toes. These canals are not simple ditches. They form entire networks, leading Nile water into fields far from the riverbank. Sluice gates, basic but effective control, flow opened to flood, closed to save. Imagine the clunk of wooden beams, shifting the gush of water rushing into waiting earth. Farmers cheer women, bring baskets of bread and onions for laborers. Children splash in shallow pools before being scolded away. Reservoirs, too, are dug sunken basins, lined with clay, to hold water for the long dry months. In the distance, you see dikes rising mounds of packed earth, shoring up the flood. The heat bakes the workers' backs, sweat streaming down their linen soaked and clinging. Yet they endure because every drop saved means survival. The sensory world is brutal, but alive. The slap of mud against baskets, the grunts of oxen dragging sledges of clay, the croak of frogs filling new pools. Dragonflies skim the surface, their wings flashing in sunlight. The smell is half sweet, half rotten, like life and decay tangled together. Mosquitoes swarm, biting your arms until they welt, but no one dares stop. The water must be caught while it can. And here's the humor laced with cruelty. Pharaohs boast of commanding the Nile, carving inscriptions about their divine control of water. In truth, it's peasants like you, knee-deep in muck, who command nothing but a shovel. The king gets credit, you get blisters. The monuments may stand tall, but the ditches you dig keep Egypt alive. Yet these works are miracles of cooperation. Entire villages labor together, tools, clattering voices, shouting bodies moving in rhythm. Overseers bark orders, scribes tally hours, priests bless the waters. It is Egypt as one machine gears of flesh and will grinding to harness the river. Even failures, when canals silt up or dikes collapse, become lessons carved into communal memory. At dusk, when you finally drop your basket, your body aches. Mud cakes your legs, your throat burns for beer. But you look back and see water coursing through a canal you carved, flowing like liquid silver into the distance. Fields shimmer with promise, reeds sway, and lotus flowers float where desert once cracked. For a moment, pride washes away exhaustion. These canals, dikes, and reservoirs are invisible monuments, less celebrated than pyramids, yet more vital. Stone may honor kings, but water sustains people. And long after pharaohs' names fade, the channels dug by calloused hands still mark the earth veins of survival etched into sand. In Egypt, you never wake, eat, work, or sleep alone. Even when your house is empty, you are surrounded by gods, by spirits, by eyes painted on walls and amulets that blink in torchlight. The divine is everywhere, stitched into every breath. When you rise with the sun, you greet Ra, whose golden bark sails across the sky. His light pours through the narrow window of your mud brick house, a reminder that without him, the world would fall into endless night. Before your first mouthful of bread, you whisper thanks to Renenutet, goddess of harvest, so the next loaf will not fail you. When you step into the field, you think of Osiris, lord of rebirth, who taught Egypt the secrets of farming. At every turn, your life loops through gods, like beads on a necklace. The sensory world of worship is vivid. At the market incense, smoke curls from clay burners, sharp with frankincense and sweet with myrrh. Amulets clink against your chest, a scarab for protection, an eye of Horus for health, a tiny figure of Bes to ward off nightmares. You chew bread that tastes faintly of ash, and you remember offerings burned for the gods. You pour beer into clay cups, watching foam slide down the sides, imagining it also sliding into the mouths of spirits you cannot see. Every household has its shrine. A small niche in the wall holds painted figures offerings of bread crusts, dried fish flowers, wilting in jars of water. Children play nearby, their laughter mixing with the faint smoke of oil lamps. Religion here is not confined to temples. It seeps into courtyards, kitchens, bedrooms. Even as you grind grain, you glance at the shrine whispering a plea for strength. And yet, here's the humor, hidden in devotion. The gods are many, their domains overlapping, their moods unpredictable. You might pray to Hathor for fertility, only to leave an offering for Taweret, just in case. Insurance, ancient Egyptian style. Imagine paying premiums, not to one company, but to dozens, hoping one of them answers your call. It's divine bureaucracy at its most chaotic. Festivals amplify this presence. When gods are freed from temples, their statues hidden in gilded shrines, the air vibrates with drums and chants. You press into the crowd, craning to glimpse the sacred bark swaying on the shoulders of priests. You smell sweat beer incense, the river's wet breath. The moment is electric, human, and divine, colliding in dust and song. But even outside festivals, gods shape decisions. Farmers choose when to plant by watching the stars, believing they are messages from Nut, goddess of the sky. Mothers tie charms around their babies' necks to keep away Sekhmet's fiery wrath. Scribes dip pens in ink after praying for Thoth's guidance, fearing their words would otherwise twist into mistakes. This intimacy with the divine is not distant awe, but constant negotiation. Gods are both protectors and threats. Sobek guards the Nile, yet crocodiles kill. Sekhmet heals disease, yet spreads plague. Ra gives light, yet scorches fields. Worship here is less about love and more about balance, about keeping cosmic scales from tipping against you. At night, as you lie on your mat, the house dark except for the glow of an oil lamp, you trace your amulet with your fingers. The scarab is smooth, cool, a little chipped. You whisper a prayer to whoever is listening. Isis Hathor, perhaps even a nameless spirit lurking in shadows. Outside the desert, wind moans through the reeds, carrying with it the eternal reminder. In Egypt, the gods are never far. Step into an Egyptian temple, and you do not simply enter a building, you walk into the map of the cosmos itself. To you, the temple is not just stone, but the beating heart of the universe, a place where heaven and earth meet. From the outside, the pylons rise like mountains, massive gateways, carved with reliefs of pharaohs, smiting enemies, gods towering beside them. The walls glow in the sunlight, painted with blues, reds, and golds that shimmer like fire. You pass through towering doors of cedar wood, their scent sharp and foreign, imported from distant Lebanon. The moment you step inside, the air cools heavy with incense. Shadows gather, and your breath seems louder, your footsteps muffled against smooth stone floors. Every corridor draws you deeper into mystery. Columns loom, carved to resemble bundled papyrus, their tops blossoming like lotus flowers. Their surfaces are covered in hieroglyphs and images, offerings, battles, hymns. As you trail your fingers along the grooves, dust clings to your skin, as if the walls themselves whisper the prayers of centuries. The sensory world is overwhelming. You smell resin, burning thick and sweet, curling in smoky ribbons toward the high ceiling. You hear chants echoing low voices of priests reciting hymns, their rhythm like waves on the Nile. You taste the dryness of the air, touched faintly by ash from oil lamps. You see shafts of light filtering from high windows, illuminating motes of dust that dance like spirits. At the temple's core lies the sanctuary, small, dark, and silent. Here rests the statue of the god, hidden from common eyes, revealed only to priests. To approach it is to tremble. The space is so hushed that even your heartbeat feels intrusive. The statue may be no taller than a man, carved of stone or wood, gilded in gold leaf. Yet it is alive, inhabited by the god's essence. Each morning, priests wash it, anoint it with oils, dress it in fresh linen, and present bread and beer. To outsiders, it may look like ritual fussing. To you, it is the daily act of keeping the universe in balance. Here's the humor, wrapped in awe. The gods eat better than you. While your bread is coarse and gritty, theirs is fine, white, and soft. While your beer is thick and sour, theirs is fresh and sweet. Offerings pile high, while your own table groans under scarcity. Priests insist the gods consume only the essence of food, leaving the remains for humans. Still, you cannot help but notice that the priests never look hungry. The temple is not just a house of worship, but a powerhouse of economy. Grain flows into its storerooms, livestock into its pens, papyrus, scrolls into its archives. Priests manage lands, oversee workers' trade goods. To pray here is to step into the machinery of wealth and politics, as much as into the presence of divinity. And yet, despite this grandeur, you feel something profound. Standing in the hypostyle hall, columns towering like a petrified forest light, flickering across painted ceilings, you sense the smallness of your body against eternity. The temple is a universe. In miniature pylons are the horizon columns, the plants of creation, the sanctuary, the first mound rising from chaos. You are not just in a building, you are inside the story of creation itself. When you leave, the sunlight blinds you, the heat presses down, and the sounds of the marketplace rush back in. But something lingers, the smell of incense clinging to your hair, the hush of stone echoing in your ears. You return to grinding of grain, hauling water, raising children, but you carry within you the memory of walking through the universe carved in stone. In Egypt, death is not an end. It is a doorway, a river crossing a journey as real as any trip on the Nile. You live every day with the awareness that your life is temporary, but your soul, the Ka and the Ba, may endure if properly cared for. When someone dies, the body is not discarded, it is prepared. Priests chant embalmers, work resins, bubble over braziers, filling the air with sharp medicinal scents. You smell cedar oil, frankincense, and the heavy sweetness of honey. The body is washed in Nile water, salted with natron, until the skin tightens, dried into permanence. Linen is wrapped in layer after layer, crinkling softly as it binds flesh to eternity. Amulets are slipped between folds, a scarab over the heart, an eye to guard the soul, a knot of Isis to protect against harm, each charm cool against the skin, each knot tied with whispered prayers. But the body is only half the journey. The soul faces trials in the underworld, the duat. You imagine yourself walking through halls of shadow, facing monstrous guardians with crocodile heads, lion jaws, serpent tails. The air is thick with silence, broken only by your footsteps and the distant roar of fire. Scrolls of the Book of the Dead are your map spells inked on papyrus, guiding you past dangers. Miss a verse, stumble in speech, and you risk being devoured by Amit the Eater of Hearts, part lion, part crocodile, part hippopotamus. The most crucial moment comes in the Hall of Ma'at. You stand before Osiris, his skin green as new reeds, flanked by Anubis, with the head of a jackal, and Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe. Before you rests the scale. On one side your heart, on the other the feather of Ma'at, symbol of truth and balance. If your heart is heavier, weighted with lies, greed, cruelty, it will be thrown to Amit. If it balances, you pass on to the fields of reeds, a paradise where crops grow eternally, families reunite, and you live in peace. The sensory weight of this belief is immense. Imagine lying on your mat at night, hearing the desert wind moan, staring at the flicker of an oil lamp. You feel your heartbeat thudding in your chest and wonder, will it balance against the feather? You taste the dryness of fear, your tongue sticking to your palate. You clutch your amulet tighter, whispering prayers into the darkness. And here's the dark humor. Egyptians spent their lives preparing for death more meticulously than for life. You might live in a house of mud brick that crumbles after decades, but you build tombs of stone to last millennia. Your furniture is flimsy in life, but carved in detail for the afterlife. You chew bread filled with grit, but order statues of bakers to ensure you'll have fresh loaves for eternity. Death, perversely, is the only place where comfort is guaranteed, provided you can pay for it. For the poor, preparations are humble, simple burials in shallow sand graves, offerings of bread and beer left by grieving hands. For the wealthy, tombs gleam with painted walls, food piled high, servants buried or depicted in frescoes to serve forever. Hieroglyphs crawl across walls like spells frozen in time, guiding the soul through dangers promising eternal harvest. Every death echoes through the living. Funerary processions wail through streets, women tearing their hair dust, thrown on heads, voices raised until hoarse. You hear it from afar, a chorus of grief that prickles your skin. You see the coffin carried on shoulders, painted eyes staring outward, guiding the dead even in silence. But at the heart of it all is hope. Hope that death is not an end, but a transformation, that beyond sand and toil lies the field of reeds, green and abundant. Hope that Osiris will grant you renewal, that Ra's sun will shine on your soul forever. So in Egypt, to live is to prepare for death, not with despair, but with diligence. Because eternity is not gifted, it is built like pyramids, brick by brick, spell by spell, offering by offering. Death in Egypt is not silence, it is ceremony, labor, and transformation. When you die, your family does not simply bury you. They orchestrate a ritual drama, one that begins with mourning and ends with rebirth. The moment death comes, cries erupt. Women throw dust on their heads, claw at their faces, wail in voices so raw they shake walls. Hired mourners join them, their shrieks echoing through the streets, a chorus of grief meant to carry your soul skyward. The air smells of sweat, incense, and dust, thick with the presence of both sorrow and spectacle. Your body is carried to the embalmer's workshop, a low building near the edge of town, away from daily life, but close to the desert's dry breath. Here, artisans of death prepare you for eternity. The space is part laboratory, part temple. Clay jars of natron salts line the walls, their powdery scent, sharp and acrid. Bowls of resins and oils bubble gently over braziers, filling the room with thick, sweet smoke. Reed mats rustle as assistants move about carrying knives, bandages, amulets. The process begins with purification. Your body is washed in Nile water, cool against stiffening skin. Then comes the most infamous act, removal of the brain. A hook is slid through the nostrils, the skull shaken until the tissue liquefies, then drained. The room fills with a pungent, metallic smell, enough to make even hardened embalmers gag. Here's the bitter humor. While your family imagines your soul soaring, your head is being emptied like an old wineskin. The organs follow. A slit is mowed along your side, and lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines are removed, washed, embalmed, and placed into canopic jars. Each jar bears a guardian god, falcon-headed Kibeh-Senwef for intestines, jackal-headed Duimutif for stomach, human-headed Imsadi for liver, baboon-headed Hapi for lungs. Their carved faces stare outward, eternal wardens of your insides. Your heart, however, remains. It must face the scales of Ma'at, and without it, your soul is lost. Next comes natron. Your body is packed inside and out, with this salty powder drying you slowly under desert air. Weeks pass. Skin shrinks. Flesh stiffens. Moisture vanishes. When unwrapped, you are leathery tight, almost unrecognizable. Yet this is salvation. Decay halted, identity preserved. Then comes anointing. Oils of cedar, myrrh, and frankincense are poured over you, seeping into cracks, filling the air with fragrance. Priests murmur spells as they rub ointment into your limbs, softening the stiffness of death. Bandaging follows linen strips wound in careful layers, each piece tied with incantations. Amulets are slipped between wrappings, scarabs' anks, eyes knots, the crunch of linen, the press of charms, the murmur of words. Weave your body into sacred armor. Finally, you are placed in coffins, perhaps one if you are poor, or multiple nested cases if you are wealthy. Wood painted with hieroglyphs and scenes of your life surrounds you. Your face is carved or painted on the lid, eyes wide and watchful. To see the coffin is to see both death and defiance, the promise that you, even in stillness, will endure. The funeral procession begins. Priests chant their voices, deep the sound of sistrums, rattling sharp in the hot air. Men carry your coffin on their shoulders, swaying with the weight. Women wail ere loose garments torn, their cries rising into the desert. Offerings of bread, beer, onions, and meat are piled high, their smells mingling earthy, sweet, pungent. The opening of the mouth ritual is performed. A priest touches your lips with a special tool, symbolically restoring your senses, so you may eat, drink, speak, and breathe in the afterlife. At last your body is lowered into the tomb. Torches flicker on painted walls, scenes of harvests, banquets, and gods awaiting you. The air is close, heavy with resin and smoke. Priests seal jars of food, furniture, and shopti figurines around you. Servants carved in miniature to labor on your behalf in eternity. The door is closed. Mud plastered, stones piled. Silence returns. Here's the irony. Your house of Nile was mud brick, crumbling into decades. Your house of death is stone built to outlast centuries. You lived in dust. You are buried in eternity, for the living grief lingers. But for you, wrapped, sealed, and sung into darkness, the journey has only begun. The tomb is not an end, it is a gate. Beyond lies the field of reeds, where the sun never burns too hot, the harvest never fails, and you walk forever in green abundance. Religion in Egypt is not just ritual, it is story. Every temple wall, every chant, every painted papyrus carries myths that shape how you see the world. These tales are not entertainment alone. They are lessons, warnings, hopes stitched into narrative. Take the story of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. You grow up hearing it whispered by firelight, painted on tomb walls, enacted in festivals. Osiris, the good king, betrayed and murdered by his jealous brother Set. His body hacked into pieces, scattered across Egypt. Isis, his devoted wife, searches tirelessly, gathering his fragments, weeping into the Nile until it floods. With magic and love, she restores him long enough to conceive Horus, the falcon child, who will grow to avenge his father. For you, this is more than myth. It explains the cycle of death and rebirth, the flooding of the Nile, the eternal battle between chaos and order. Then there is Ra's nightly journey. Each evening, the sun god sails his bark into the underworld, facing monstrous serpents like Apophis, who try to devour his light. Priests chant to aid him. Ordinary people burn lamps to strengthen his power. Each dawn his victory is proven when light returns. You wake not because the sun rose, but because Ra fought, bled, and triumphed while you slept. Your morning is proof of divine resilience. The myth of Sekhmet chills you. Once Ra unleashed her wrath upon humanity, and she slaughtered with such fury that the world nearly ended. To stop her, the gods dyed beer red, tricking her into drinking until she grew drunk and stumbled into slumber. You laugh at the image. Death turned into a tipsy goddess. But the lesson is sharp. Chaos can only be tamed, never destroyed. Every time you sip beer, a part of you remembers it is more than drink. It is salvation. The sensory weight of these stories is powerful. You hear them chanted in temples, voices echoing off stone, carrying the cadence of eternity. You see them painted on walls, figures of gods in bold colors, crocodile-headed, falcon-winged, lion-jawed, their bodies both alien and familiar. You smell incense rising as each tale is retold, smoke carrying words upward like offerings. Even taste carries myth. Beer brewed red at festivals of Sekhmet bread, baked in shapes recalling divine symbols. Here's the dark humor for all their grandeur. Egyptian myths often revolve around family drama, jealous brothers, protective mothers, vengeful children. The gods, like humans, bicker, cheat, rage, and mourn. It's divine reality TV carved into stone. And yet through these messy stories, Egyptians found order, justice, meaning. Children learned these tales early, repeating them in chants, doodling gods on pottery shards. Farmers mutter them in fields, seeing Osiris in the green shoots that rise after flood. Fishermen whisper to Sobek, hoping the crocodile god prefers prayers to flesh. Even scribes invoke Thoth before writing, fearing words might twist into chaos without his blessing. The myths are not distant legends. They are living maps. They tell you why the Nile floods, why the sun rises, why sickness comes, why order must be defended against chaos every single day. They remind you that you are part of a story larger than your brief sand-filled life. At night, as you lie on your mat, the oil lamp flickering low, you recall Isis's devotion, Horus's vengeance, Ra's courage, Sekhmet's fury. The stories murmur like lullabies, fierce yet comforting. You close your eyes, knowing that gods bleed fight and laugh just as you do. And in that reflection, your own struggles feel a little more bearable, your own fears a little less sharp. Life along the Nile may seem abundant grain in the fields, fish in the water, the sun a constant companion, but beneath that surface lies a darker truth. Danger lurks everywhere woven into your daily existence. Start with the Nile itself. Its waters nourish, but they also conceal. Parasites swim unseen, ready to slip into your body when you bathe or drink. Schistosomiasis, though you don't have a name for it, weakens you slowly, leaving you exhausted, your belly distended, your strength drained. You might blame curses or angry gods, but the real culprit is microscopic, invisible to your eye. In the fields, dangers multiply. The soil hides snakes, coiled like shadows, their bites quick and burning. Scorpions crawl into sandals, their stings sharp enough to kill a child. Mosquitoes swarm at dusk, whining in your ears, leaving welts on your skin, sometimes carrying fevers that burn through villages. You swat, you curse, but you cannot escape. The hum of insects is the drumbeat of survival. Your food too betrays you. Bread, the staff of life, grinds your teeth to nubs. Sand mixed into flour wears enamel away until chewing feels like punishment. Infection seeps in through broken gums, swelling your jaw, rotting your mouth. Archaeologists centuries later will find skulls with abscesses so severe they would have caused blinding pain. You live with it because there is no choice. Then there are accidents. A farmer's sickle slices more than stalks. An artisan's chisel slips gouging flesh. A potter leans too close to the kiln and breathes smoke until his lungs wheeze. Broken bones, burns, cuts, all common, all dangerous. Without antibiotics, even a scratch can fester into death. And hunger stalks the land. If the Nile's flood is too weak, crops wither, bellies shrink. If the flood is too strong, houses collapse, fields drown. Famine is a constant shadow. Children's ribs show through skin knives. Hollow cries weak. You watch neighbors starve and know your family may be next. The sensory weight of danger is everywhere. The hiss of a snake in dry grass, the sudden pinch of a scorpion, sting the itch of mosquito bites, turning into fever. The taste of gritty bread, metallic with blood from your gums. The sight of withered fields, dust blowing over cracked earth. Even the silence can terrify. When no frogs croak after flood, you know the waters failed, and famine looms. Here's the humor, cruel but sharp. You pray to gods for protection, but half your dangers are the gods' gifts themselves. The Nile blesses and curses. The sun ripens grain, but also burns skin into leather. The fertile soil feeds you, but harbors snakes and stings. In Egypt, survival is a negotiation, not a guarantee. So you rise each day, not certain you will live to see nightfall. And when you do, you thank the gods, not because you avoided death entirely, but because for now danger chose someone else. If you live in ancient Egypt, sickness is as common as the dust on your sandals. It creeps into your bones, rots your teeth, clogs your belly. Life expectancy is short, 30, maybe 40 years if you are lucky. And in those decades, your body becomes a battlefield. The most relentless enemy is infection. A scratch from a sickle, a cut from a chisel, even a splinter from a wooden stool. Any small wound can swell, redden, and ooze. Without antibiotics, pus builds, fever burns, and death hovers. You might bind the wound with honey, hoping its sweetness fights rot, or smear moldy bread onto cuts. Strange to modern ears, but surprisingly effective. Since both contain natural antibiotics, still survival depends more on luck than medicine. Intestinal diseases are constant companions. The Nile provides life, but it also delivers parasites. You drink its water and soon your belly swells. Cramps twist your gut and diarrhea weakens you until you can barely rise. Children suffer most crying dehydrated, fading in their mother's arms. Healers prescribe herbs, garlic, juniper berries, castor oil. Their taste is bitter, sharp, burning your throat as much as your illness. Malaria lurks in mosquito swarms at dusk. The fever comes sudden, sweating, drenching your body, chills rattling your bones. You shake so hard your teeth clack like pottery shards. Priests chant incantations beside your mat, while family presses amulets into your hands. Eyes of Horus, scarabs carved figures of Bes. Sometimes the fever breaks, leaving you weak but alive. Sometimes it does not. Your teeth betray you too. Bread ground with stone dust wears enamel down to stumps. Gums swell, abscesses throb, infections spread into your jaw. Imagine trying to chew when every bite feels like fire. Archaeologists have found skulls with holes eaten straight through bone from untreated abscesses. Relief comes only in the form of herbal poultices or extraction with crude tools. No anesthesia, just pain and prayer. And then there are epidemics. Plagues sweep through villages carried by fleas on rats or by contaminated grain. Entire households vanish in weeks. Priests burn incense to purify air. Healers mix concoctions of fig leaves, and honey mothers pray to Sekhmet to stay her fiery hand. But when sickness spreads, little can be done. Bodies are carried to shallow graves, chants rising in air heavy with smoke and sorrow. The sensory world of illness is unforgettable. The sour stink of sweat-soaked mats, the rattle of breath in a fevered chest, the taste of bitter herbs forced down a child's throat, the sound of flies buzzing around a wound, the faint glow of oil lamps flickering over pale faces, the texture of cold cloth pressed to burning skin, rough linen scraping against sores. Here's the bitter humor. You live in a world obsessed with the afterlife, yet daily life itself is one long duel with death. You prepare tombs that might last millennia, while your body may not last to the next harvest. You pour offerings to gods for protection, yet it is honey and moldy bread that save more lives than prayers. Still there is resilience. Egyptians document remedies on papyri, the Ebers, papyrus, the Edwin Smith papyrus, lists of herbs, minerals, and spells. Some are effective, others are desperate superstition. A poultice of dates, honey, and herbs might soothe wounds, but another remedy prescribes crocodile dung to ward off illness, a cure as dangerous as the disease itself. You never know if your healer is a scientist, a magician, or both. And yet, when sickness fades, whether from herbs, prayer, or sheer luck, you return to the fields, the workshops, the markets. Because in Egypt, Illness is not rare, survival is. When sickness strikes, you do not separate science from faith, because in Egypt, they are the same breath. The healer is part doctor, part magician, part priest, wielding herbs with one hand and spells with the other. Imagine stepping into the presence of a physician priest. The room smells sharp garlic juniper and resin bubbling in clay bowls. Papyrus scrolls lie on a reed mat, their surfaces inked with remedies, poultices of honey for wounds, castor oil for constipation, willow bark for fevers. His fingers are stained dark from ink, his nails rimmed with soil from roots dug fresh. He leans over you muttering incantations as he grinds herbs with a pestle, the rasp of stone echoing softly. But alongside these practical treatments, he invokes the gods. A cut is not only a wound, it may be a punishment from Sekhmet, lioness of plague. A fever is not just an infection, it could be Apophis's shadow clinging to your spirit. So while he bandages your arm with linen soaked in honey, he also chants spells sprinkling water blessed in the temple, drawing symbols of protection on your skin with red ochre. You taste the bitterness of herbs, smell the sweetness of incense, feel the cool drip of water across your forehead, all woven together in one act of healing. Healers specialize. Some are surgeons, setting bones with splints made of reeds and linen. Their hands are steady, their eyes sharp, their ears attuned to the groan of pain as bones are pulled back into place. Others are dentists crude but necessary, yanking teeth or packing cavities with herbal paste. Still others are midwives guiding women through childbirth, whispering prayers to Taweret, the hippo-headed goddess of fertility, as cries and blood fill the room. And yet the line between healer and sorcerer blurs. Some cures seem effective by chance garlic driving parasites from the gut, honey cleansing wounds. Others reek of superstition, crocodile dung, as contraceptive lizard blood mixed with milk to ease fevers. You never know if you are swallowing medicine or madness, but when death stalks so closely, you will try anything. Here's the humor buried in desperation. Imagine gagging down a drink of donkey liver mixed with beer, praying it will cure blindness. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but either way you are drunk enough not to care. The sensory world of healing is chaotic. The crush of herbs releasing sharp, earthy scents, the hiss of oil poured onto wounds, bubbling as it meets torn flesh, the whisper of spells murmured so close you feel the healer's breath on your skin, the sting of poultices burning against sores, the taste of bitterness coating your tongue until you gag. For the wealthy, healing can be elaborate. Priests perform rituals in temples, chanting before statues, sacrificing animals, calling down divine power. For the poor, it is simpler. Grandmothers grinding herbs in courtyards, neighbors muttering protective charms over sick children. Both paths blur medicine and magic, because in Egypt, to heal the body is also to heal the soul, and perhaps that is why Egyptians endured so much. They faced wounds, fevers, plagues with remedies, part science, part faith, part stubborn hope. Some treatments worked by accident, some by design, some by sheer placebo. But in a world where danger was constant, healing was less about certainty than about trying, always trying. So when you rise from your mat, after days of fever, sweat-soaked but alive, you do not ask whether the cure was herb spell or prayer. You only whisper thanks to the healer, to the gods, and to chance itself for letting you see another dawn. Work in Egypt is dangerous, whether in the field, the workshop, or on the river. Accidents are constant companions, and without modern hospitals, every wound is a gamble with death. Picture a farmer cutting barley under the harsh sun. His sickle slips, slicing deep into his palm. Blood runs thick, dripping onto golden stalks. He cries out, clutching the wound. Others gather pressing linen strips into his hand, binding tightly to slow the flow. The smell of iron fills the air, sharp and metallic. Later, honey is smeared into the wound, sticky, warm, soothing. It stings, but honey's natural antiseptic qualities may save him from infection. Without it, fever would follow, and soon the field would claim another life. In the workshops, dangers multiply. A carpenter's chisel bites too deep, gouging his thigh. A mason drops a block of limestone on his foot bones, shattering with a sickening crunch. The sensory weight is brutal, the snap of bone, the scream echoing against stone walls, the acrid smell of sweat and dust. Healers set bones with splints made of reeds and plaster wrapping tightly with linen. The process is agony, bone grinding against bone as it's pulled into place. There is no anesthesia, only teeth clenched, prayers whispered, and the faint hope that bones will knit straight. Burns haunt potters and smiths, lean too close to the kiln, and fire kisses skin. Flesh blisters, oozes, blackens. To soothe healers, smear resin oils or milk across raw skin. Sometimes it works, sometimes it festers. The smell of burnt flesh lingers, sweet and nauseating, clinging to nostrils. The victim cries through nights, shivering under the fever. If he survives, scars lace his arms like twisted hieroglyphs of pain. Even daily life carries risk. Children tumble from flat roofs, bones snapping. Women carrying heavy jars of water stumble ankles, twisting backs straining. Donkeys kick oxen, gore snakes, hide in fields of reeds. The margin between life and death is razor thin, measured in how quickly help arrives, or whether the gods are merciful. Here's the dark humor. Egyptians invented splints, bandages, and surgical tools centuries ahead of their time, yet still relied on spells to banish demons from broken bones. Imagine being treated with both reed splints and a whispered charm against evil spirits. Double coverage, ancient insurance style. Texts like the Edwin Smith Papyrus show startling surgical knowledge. Doctors recognized concussions, spinal injuries, even brain trauma. Some treatments were practical honey for wounds meat applied to stop bleeding, immobilization for fractures. Others were hopelessly magical incantations written on amulets, prayers to drive out sickness. Patients lived or died depending on the balance of craft faith and sheer chance. The sensory memory of accidents lingers in families. A father limps for life after a broken leg heals crooked. A mother's hands are scarred from burns, the skin shiny and tight. Children carry small notches in their bones from injuries that healed poorly. Archaeologists read these stories centuries later, bones etched with the marks of both suffering and survival. And yet Egyptians endure. They adapt, they bandage, they whisper to gods. A man with a broken arm still returns to the fields, his sickle tied to his good hand. A mason with a crushed foot limps back to the quarry, swinging hammers with his upper body. Pain is not an end, but a condition of life. So when you walk through an Egyptian village, you see scars everywhere, on faces, on hands, on bones, beneath the skin. Each scar is a story of accident met with resilience, a reminder that life here is fragile, but people refuse to surrender. When your body fails in Egypt, you do not only reach for herbs and honey, you reach for words, charms, and the unseen hand of the divine. For sickness is not merely flesh gone wrong, it is spirits, curses, and angry gods whispering in the blood. In your home, the shrine holds not just bread and flowers, but amulets, small figures of Bes, the squat, lion-faced dwarf. God grin fiercely from your bedpost, his tongue sticking out to scare away demons. Around your child's neck hangs an eye of Horus, carved in blue faience, meant to ward off fever and nightmares. The air smells faintly of incense and burned herbs smoke curling into patterns that seem to chase shadows away. Healers prescribe not only remedies, but words. A spell is chanted over water, the sound rising and falling like the current of the Nile. You drink the taste of soot and resin bitter on your tongue, convinced it carries power. Or a priest writes holy words on papyrus, washes the ink into a bowl, and you swallow the dark liquid faith, dissolving into your belly. To modern eyes, it seems strange. To you, it is survival. The sensory weight is strong. The rasp of reed pens, scratching spells onto shards of pottery. The sweetness of honey mixed with pungent garlic coating your throat as both medicine and charm. The sharp hiss of oil poured onto coals, smoke, billowing thick, stinging your eyes. The feel of cold stone amulets pressed against fevered skin, cool as river water in the heat of sickness. Here's the humor. Hidden in desperation, some spells sound less like solemn incantations and more like threats shouted at your illness. Begone, demon, who gnaws the belly, half prayer, half exorcism, like yelling at a stubborn headache. And yet, the psychology works. You feel stronger, less alone when words name your suffering. Priests of Sekhmet, the lioness goddess of plague, are both feared and revered. They claim to channel her fury, to direct her wrath away from the faithful. But you know the risk if she is not appeased. Her fire burns hotter. Offerings of beer, dyed red, are poured, recalling the myth of how humanity was saved when Sekhmet's bloodlust was tricked into drunkenness. Every gulp of beer at festivals is both celebration and nervous insurance against her rage. Even childbirth, a moment of both joy and mortal danger, leans heavily on charms. Women clutch ivory wands, carved with protective figures, their edges worn smooth by countless hands. Midwives chant as mothers scream, calling on Taweret, the hippo goddess, to guard the threshold of life. The smell of blood and sweat fills the air mixed with incense smoke. Pain is raw, but faith builds a shield against fear. Amulets, chants, spells, these are not separate from medicine. They are medicine. They ease the mind, rally the will, and turn terror into ritual. In a world without certainty, belief itself is a remedy. And here's the irony that lingers thousands of years later. Archaeologists dig up amulets, read spells on papyri, shake their heads at the superstition. Yet even in modern hospitals, people still clutch charms, whisper prayers, or hope for miracles. The line between faith and cure has never truly vanished. So when you lie fevered on your mat, amulet pressed against your chest, the chant of a healer buzzing in your ears, smoke thick around you, you are not alone. You are held by community, by ritual, by gods both feared and beloved. And in that embrace, even if your body fails, your spirit feels a little less afraid. When the sun finally sinks below the horizon, Egypt exhales. The day has been a furnace fields, blazing markets, roaring temples echoing. But night brings a slower rhythm, one that wraps itself around homes of mud brick and courtyards shaded by palms. Step into your house as darkness gathers. The air cools quickly. The heat stored in thick walls seeps out, leaving the rooms dim and quiet. Oil lamps flicker their flames, small but stubborn, casting long shadows across plastered walls. The smell of burning fat fills your nostrils, acrid, smoky, clinging to clothes and hair. Every corner glows gold, while shadows crowd together like watchful figures. Family gathers around low stools or reed mats. Dinner is simple, more bread onions, perhaps lentil stew, simmered in a clay pot, the scent earthy and sharp. If you are lucky, a bit of fish adds salt to the meal grilled until its skin crackles. Beer foams in clay mugs, thick and sour, washing down the grit of the day. The sounds are soft, chewing murmurs, the clatter of pottery bowls, children's laughter echoing under the low roof. After eating, you step into the courtyard. The night sky is a tapestry of stars, sharper and closer than any city dweller today could imagine. The Milky Way stretches like spilled milk across the heavens, and you believe it to be the celestial Nile mirroring the river below. The air is cool, scented faintly with reed's dust and the sweetness of blooming lotus from nearby pools. Crickets sing in the distance, their rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Neighbors call across walls, voices carrying easily in the dry air. Gossip travels fast. Who quarreled? Who prospered? Who prayed too loudly? Dogs bark. Donkeys bray. A baby wails somewhere in the night. The village is alive even in darkness, though softer, slower. Here's the humor, wrapped in fatigue. Privacy does not exist. Your walls are thin, your roof shared with family, your courtyard open to neighbors. Every cough, every argument, every snore is community property. Earplugs won't be invented for millennia, so you simply endure unless you can climb to the roof. That roof becomes your bedroom. Mats are spread across its flat surface, children curling beside parents, the night breeze cool on your skin. Above stars wheel in silence, their patterns telling time, guiding farmers, whispering myths. You fall asleep watching Orion rise, imagining him as Osiris guarding the sky. The rough mat scratches your back. The smell of dust clings to your nostrils, but the air is free, wide, and forgiving after a day of toil, and yet dangers remain. Mosquitoes whine, biting your arms and face. Jackals prowl the edges of villages, their howls eerie and thin. Sometimes thieves slip through shadows, their footsteps muffled on dirt. Families keep dogs' amulets and trust in the gods to guard the night. Sleep here is never without risk. Still exhaustion wins. Your eyes close as the lamp gutters out, and for a moment silence reigns. The Nile hums softly in the distance, stars burn overhead, and the desert wind cools your brow. Tomorrow will demand your body again, but tonight for a few hours, you rest in the arms of Egypt itself. As you lie on your mat beneath the stars, sleep does not simply close your eyes. It opens a door. To the Egyptians, dreams are not random sparks in the mind, but messages carried by God's spirits and the restless dead. Sleep is another kind of journey, a nightly voyage as real as Ra's passage through the underworld. The world around you quiets. Oil lamps gutter out, leaving only the faint glow of moonlight on mud brick walls. The air cools your body, unwinds the rough fibers of the reed mat, pressing into your skin. You smell dust, faint smoke from earlier fires, the sour tang of beer lingering on your breath. Slowly, your mind drifts, and with it, your soul. In dreams, gods appear. You might see Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe, offering you a scroll filled with secrets, or Isis, radiant and veiled whispering comfort. Sometimes the visions are beautiful fields of green reeds, endless banquets, voices of lost loved ones. Other times they are terrifying crocodiles snapping at your feet, walls, collapsing, blood staining the Nile red. You wake, trembling, sweat slick on your skin, heart racing, convinced the dream carried a warning. The sensory weight of dreaming is powerful. You hear voices that feel more vivid than waking speech, smell incense that isn't burning, taste food that never touched your lips. The line between sleep and life blurs until you are unsure which is real. You cling to fragments in the morning, repeating them aloud, trying to pin down their meaning before they slip away like water through fingers. Here's the humor that Egyptians themselves recognized. Not every dream is sacred. Sometimes it's just your stomach arguing with gritty bread or too much beer. Imagine a villager waking from a nightmare of crocodiles, only to realize he simply rolled off his mat onto a stray goat. Even priests acknowledged that some dreams were nonsense, yet still no one dared ignore them completely. Dream interpretation becomes its own craft. Priests and scribes record guides carving or writing what visions might mean. A dream of drinking clear water, good fortune, a dream of losing teeth. Death approaches. Flying in a dream might signal divine favor, while falling could mean betrayal. These interpretations fill papyri, the earliest dream dictionaries in history. You can almost hear neighbors gossiping at dawn. I dreamt of fish last night. Then expect abundance, or maybe indigestion. Dreams are also invitations. Temples dedicate chambers for incubation, where you sleep in sacred space, hoping gods will visit. Imagine lying on a stone floor, beneath painted stars, priests chanting nearby. Smoke curling into the rafters, you drift into uneasy rest, begging for visions to guide your future. Perhaps you will dream of a cure for sickness, a sign of love, or reassurance that your dead father walks safely in the field of reeds. Children, too, are wrapped in dreams. Mothers tie amulets to their necks to guard against nightmares, whispering lullabies that blend prayers with comfort. The night may bring Bess, the squat protector god, stomping and snarling in dreamland to chase demons away. Even in sleep, fear and hope walk hand in hand. So when you close your eyes in Egypt, you do not simply rescue voyage. You float on the same waters, raw sails. You face visions both divine and absurd. You wake unsure if the gods have spoken, or if your stomach simply rebelled. Either way, sleep is not escape. It is another chapter of life, written in symbols, read in whispers, believed with reverence. When the village sinks into night, the world does not fall silent. It changes voice. Darkness in Egypt is not peaceful. It is a living thing filled with whispers, cries, and the weight of unseen eyes. You lie on your mat, gazing at stars, scattered sharp against the black sky. The breeze cools your skin, carrying scents of damp earth smoke from dying fires, and the faint musk of animals tethered nearby. For a moment, you drift in comfort, but then the village speaks. Dogs bark suddenly, sharp and insistent. Their howls echo against mud brick walls, answered by the long, eerie cries of jackals out in the desert. Somewhere in the distance, a donkey brays harsh, ragged, startling in its intensity. Chickens rustle restlessly in coops' wings, flapping in the dark. You cannot see what disturbs them, but you feel it's something moving in shadows beyond your sight. The sensory world of night presses heavy. You hear footsteps crunching softly on dirt streets, neighbors perhaps, or thieves. The smell of unwashed bodies lingers as families crowd together on rooftops, dozens breathing the same air. An infant wails in the next courtyard, its cry high and thin. Mothers murmur lullabies, their voices tired but soothing, weaving into the night's chorus. Darkness itself is a threat. Oil lamps burn out quickly. Wood is too precious for waste. Without firelight, shadows devour alleys, doorways, fields. Your eyes strain pupils wide, searching for shapes that may or may not exist. Was that a goat shifting, or a stranger crouched low? The line between safety and danger blurs. Here's the humor, edged with fear. Privacy is non-existent, yet loneliness thrives. You hear everything: neighbors arguing, lovers whispering snores, rattling through thin walls, and still you feel alone, swallowed by night. So west it seems to stretch forever. It is as if the desert itself leans in, listening. Superstition thickens the air. You clutch amulets, whisper prayers against wandering spirits. Tales of ghosts, restless dead, who walk at night rustle in your mind. Some say they knock on doors demanding offerings. Others insist they slip into dreams, suffocating sleepers. Every creak of timber, every sigh of wind feels like a soul brushing past. Bandits, too, haunt the night. Villages lock granaries, posting guards with spears. You hear their footsteps, pacing the scrape of wood against stone as they shift at the gate. But reassurance is thin. A desperate thief will risk even divine punishment for a sack of barley, and if your household is the target, you may wake to the clash of steel, the cry of alarm, the sight of shadows moving fast across rooftops. And yet, despite fear, life continues. Families murmur prayers. Children tumble into uneasy sleep. Neighbors whisper gossip even in darkness. The night is not emptiness, but a stage where every sound, smell, and shadow source plays its role. You drift between wakefulness and sleep, nerves tautier, straining. At last, the desert wind shifts. Jackals fall silent, dogs settle, and the village exhales. Stars wheel overhead, the Nile murmurs in the distance, and exhaustion pulls you down. You close your eyes, knowing morning will come, but never certain you will see it. Night in Egypt is not just rest. It is a gamble, a fragile truce with a world that never sleeps. When the sun falls and the Nile glimmers under moonlight, Egypt does not rest. It shifts into a place of hidden threats. Night is freedom for creatures and people you hope never to meet. Start with the animals. Jackals prowl at the edges of fields, their howls rising like eerie laughter. They dart between shadows, their eyes glinting in the dark, scavenging scraps, stealing chicks, sometimes bold enough to creep close to doorways. Hyenas, larger and crueler, occasionally appear their cackling calls, sending shivers down spines. Donkeys bray in alarm. Goats stamp nervously, and you know predators are near. The river itself is no safer. Crocodiles lurk beneath the still surface, their bodies barely rippling the moonlit water. At night, fishermen risk ambush, their reed boats silent, but vulnerable. A sudden splash, a muffled scream, and the Nile swallows its dew. Hippopotamuses too wander from reeds, their massive shapes blotting out stars as they trample crops or overturn boats. To encounter one in darkness is terror itself. But animals are only part of the danger. Thieves and bandits thrive in night's cover. A narrow alley, a granary left unguarded, a house with its door poorly barred, all become invitations. You lie awake, listening to faint creaks, wondering if it is simply wind or a stranger testing your lock. Villagers keep spears by their mats, dogs chained near gates, but courage fades quickly when shadows move. A few desperate men with blades can silence an entire household, and then come the unseen threats, the restless dead. Egyptians believe spirits wander after dusk. Some return harmlessly, visiting family lingering near offerings. Others, angry or forgotten, lash out causing sickness. Nightmares, accidents. You feel them in sudden chills, hear them in whispers carried by desert wind, see them in the flicker of a lamp that gutters for no reason. Amulets of Bes and Hathor guard bedsides, incense burns in courtyards. But fear still creeps in when you wake at midnight to a silence too deep, too absolute. The sensory weight of danger is thick. The smell of smoke from hastily lit torches acrid and sharp. The sound of sandals slapping against as neighbors run to chase off intruders. The taste of fear itself, dry mouth, bitter tongue, throat tight. Your skin prickles at every rustle of reeds, every scratch of claws on mud brick. Here's the bitter humor, your body exhausted from a day of grinding farming or hauling craves sleep, but night denies you. You lie listening, every creak magnified, every bark stretched into omen. It's like trying to sleep in a haunted house. Only the ghosts are not stories, but the reality your culture insists is true. Still communities endure. Guards pace with torches, their flames casting shifting halos. Families huddle close, whispering prayers, clutching amulets. Neighbors band together, rushing to each other's aid when shouts pierce the night. Fear is constant, but so is solidarity. And when dawn finally breaks, the jackals vanish, the thieves slink away, the spirits retreat into shadow. The village breathes again. Children tumble into streets, women fetch water, men head to fields. The terror of night is forgotten, or at least buried beneath the brighter worries of the day. Night in Egypt is never gentle. It is survival, played in whispers, shadows, and prayers. And you lying on your mat, eyes wide, know that every sunrise is not guaranteed, but earned. At last, after a night of whispers and fear, the horizon softens. Darkness thins, and a pale ribbon of light unfurls across the desert sky. Egypt stirs again. For you, dawn is not just the return of the sun. It is proof that Ra has conquered chaos once more, that the world still holds together. You wake on the flat roof of your home, body stiff from reed mats, skin cool from the desert breeze. Around you, neighbors shift under blankets, stretching, yawning, rubbing eyes rimmed with coal, smudged from yesterday. Children sit up first, their chatter breaking the fragile silence. Dogs bark, roosters crow, donkeys bray the chorus of morning, rising like incense into the air. The sensory shift is striking. The sharp chill of night fades into warmth. The smell of smoke from rekindled fires curls upward, and the crackle of kindling mixes with the clatter of pots. Women grind grain on querns, the rasping rhythm echoing across courtyards. Men lead animals from pens, their hooves thumping against hard-packed earth. The Nile glitters, turning from silver to gold as the sun lifts higher. Here's the humor edged with truth. You survive the night, only to face another day of backbreaking labor, gritty bread, and the possibility of crocodiles or bandits. It's less fresh start and more same problems, new sunrise. Still relief washes through you. Fear retreats under daylight, replaced by the practical burdens of life. Religious devotion stitches itself into the moment. Families lift hands to the sun, whispering prayers of thanks to Ra. Priests in temples open sanctuary doors, washing and dressing statues of gods, feeding them offerings of bread and beer. Smoke rises from altars sharp with resin as chants carry over rooftops. For a moment, the village feels aligned with the universe, every action from grinding grain to lighting lamps, part of a cosmic rhythm. The sensory texture of renewal is vivid. You taste the first sip of beer sour, but refreshing cold from jars buried in damp earth overnight. You hear the soft slap of wet clay as potters prepare wheels for another day. You smell the sweetness of lotus carried by the river breeze. You feel the heat already growing, the promise of sweat soon clinging to your skin. And then the cycle begins again. Bread will be baked, fields tilled, boats loaded, temples visited. The dangers of night will fade into gossip, but they never disappear. You know they will return as sure as the sun will set. Life in Egypt is a circle, day to night, night to day, flood to drought, birth to death, death to rebirth. You live not on a line, but on a wheel, always turning, always repeating. And so, as the sun rises, fully warming your face, you take a deep breath. You survived one more night, stepped into one more day. You shoulder the weight of survival, knowing the gods are watching. The Nile is waiting, and the cycle continues eternal as the stone temples, fragile as the flame of an oil lamp in the dark. And so your day in ancient Egypt comes to an end. From waking on a scratchy reed mat at dawn, to chewing bread filled with sand, to sweating in fields or markets, to whispering prayers in shadowed temples, you have walked the rhythm of a world both harsh and luminous. You have felt the Nile's cool breath, tasted in its gifts, feared its dangers. You have carried baskets heavy with grain, watched incense curl toward painted ceilings, shivered at night when jackals cried and shadows pressed too close. Life here is fragile, woven of dust and sweat, yet also eternal. Every sunrise feels like survival, every meal like gratitude, every prayer like a lifeline thrown into the chaos of existence. And always, you are reminded that Egypt is not built on pharaohs alone, but on the countless hands, backs, and hearts of ordinary people, farmers, women, artisan, scribes, who carried the kingdom forward, grain by grain, word by word, stone by stone. Here's the truth, whispered gently. You wouldn't last a single day. The bread would wear your teeth down. The parasites would sap your strength. The dangers of night would hollow your courage. Yet in that struggle lies beauty. These people endured. They dreamed, they built wonders that outlasted their names. They lived so that we, thousands of years later, might still remember their stories. So as you close your eyes, now, let the Nile's eternal murmur carry you. Drift with Ra across the night sky, safe in his bark. Rest in the cool shadow of temples, beneath stars sharp as silver blades. Sleep knowing that Egypt still whispers, still breathes, still lives in the echoes of sand and stone. Good night, and may your dreams be gentle